conventional and performative femininity is more than just a pleasing aesthetic. It creates a gradient of femininity, as well as reinstates the need to perform this girlhood. This gradient of femininity creates an exclusive sphere of
social media profiles,
with those performing girlhood well enough and excluding those who aren't. And since this identity of girlhood prescribed by the trend is so attached to the Eurocentric ideal of beauty, as well as to the accumulation of material products and their consumption, this exclusion is not just blatantly problematic, but also perpetuates social inequality based on race, class, ethnicity, etc. I'll now be showing a clip which basically encapsulates the problematic aspect of this trend. Thus, we can evidently see that the trend, whose inception may have been to provide a sense of unity among women, transformed into a lame excuse for evading responsibility, infantilizing adult women, and perpetuating gender essentialist norms. The next clip, for example, shows a woman not being able to park their car properly, and then the men in their family coming to save them. This perpetuates the age-old stereotype that women can't drive as well as men can do. There are similar aspects to other linguistic phrases which are a part of this trend, which is girl math and girl dinner. This portrays women to be incompetent in all facets of life, from financial decisions as portrayed in girl math to nutrition as in girl dinner, thus aestheticizing the anti-intellectualism, lack of basic skills, and evading responsibility. With the alignment to conventional femininity, visually as well as behaviorally, this trend goes hand in hand with the preachings of lipstick feminism, also known as girly feminism, which emerged during the third wave of feminism in the early 1990s. This sought to embrace the traditional concepts of femininity while also embracing the traditional feminist ideas. And what makes this argument of lipstick feminism, as well as claiming that the trend girlhood is feminist, absolutely redundant, is these 3 points. Number one, who gets to decide what is sexual and what is feminine? It is patriarchy. Furthermore, definitive attributes of femininity and sexuality is ephemeral and constantly evolves, just like the trends in social media. And thus, even if someone chooses to be sexualized or infantilized through the trend, that will never be a result of their absolute agency. It will always be a product of socialization and conditioning. Thus, by chasing a forever changing ideal of beauty, that is prescribed by patriarchy and disguising it as an act of agency, one is succumbing to the same patriarchy which it aims to rebel against. This performance of girlhood thus serves as a subtle reinforcement of gender stereotypes, as well as aims to attain this performance through the act of material consumption. And by doing so, it reinforces the neoliberal capitalist feminism as a pathway to empowerment. Moving on to the aspects of gendered marketing and overconsumption. Gendered marketing is a pervasive strategy that shapes consumer behavior by associating products and services with specific gender identities. This goes beyond just colors in products. It creates a standard of masculinity and femininity, influencing not only what people consume, but also how they perceive themselves and their gender identities as a result of consuming that material product. This also influences long-term consumption patterns and especially imprints onto children their expected gendered ways of living, consequently influencing their identities as well as aspirations and actions. Drawing upon Judith Butler's theory of gender performativity, gender is in no way a stable identity or a locus of agency from which various acts proceed. Rather, it is an identity instituted through a stylized repetition of acts. These acts are acts of affirmation we do every day to affirm our gender. And the aforementioned acts includes the act of material consumption. And gender marketing uses this intrinsic fluidity of gender as well as the social need to align our gender performance to our sex to sell their gendered products. Gender overconsumption, on the other hand, does not just entail a particular gender category consuming more than the other, but it also encapsulates the phenomena that is consuming products to affirm and sustain one's gender identity. Social media and the performance of girlhood performs a similar function as gendered marketing. However, it encapsulates more than just fashion. It sells a lifestyle. From self-care routines to fashion to jewelry to even what one eats, this trend envelopes all facets of life, and companies use marketing strategies to commodify this unattainable and performative lifestyle into marketable products. Trends such as the aforementioned influence consumers to not just buy to experience, but buy to embody. The purchase of a new workout set is not just clothing, but rather a representation of a lifestyle lifestyle of health and opulence. What is worse is that the simple experience of being a woman becomes inextricably intertwined with purchasing power, conditioning us into becoming unaware agents of capitalism, as well as turning gender identity and community into a capital form. This type of content normalizes and aestheticizes the abnormal amounts of consumption in the eyes of the audience, and this is very evident from the fact that something like retail therapy even exists. Now I'd like to answer the question of why gendered overconsumption. Why have I only scrutinized one particular gender identity? Well, number one, I identify as a woman, so my familiarity with the type of content that is thrust upon us has to do with this. And number two is that patriarchy sneaks into the modern world with its many facades, and the significance attached to a woman's looks is still pertinent. What makes the focus on gendered overconsumption exceedingly imperative is that gendered marketing and the need for visual reinvention isn't the same for the genders. For example, the expectation of visual reinvention is rarely ever placed on men to the same extent as it is done on women. While men may engage with trends and some target them specifically, that they are not typically judged by their ability to shift from clean girl to coquette to mob wife in a matter of weeks. For women, visual presentation has become a social currency that must be continually refreshed to remain relevant and considered attractive. In their 2012 book, Meat Market, Female Flesh Under Capitalism, Laurie Penny argues that consumer culture and the obsession with women's bodies acts as tool of social control, diverting female energy from political potential. They contend that under capitalism, women are conditioned to be both consumers and products to be consumed, and this cycle of consumption alienates women from their own bodies and their political potential. This need for visual gratification is what compels women to follow trends, and ironically also is what results in the constant reproduction of such trends. Now I would like to briefly glance upon the real-world environmental consequences of the said overconsumption. Overconsumption is defined as the excessive consumption or the excess use of goods and services, including energy, land, water, or materials that cause harm or detrimental effects to humans and or the environment, namely by exceeding the carrying capacity and life-supporting systems of the planet and its ecosystems. Consumption rates differ from region to region, but on a global basis, they have been steadily increasing over the decades. One way of inferring this is by looking at what is called the Earth Overshoot Day, which is a metric devised by the Global Footprint Network to measure consumption over time. I have talked more about this Earth Overshoot Day in the slides, and I'm not elaborating because there's a shortage of time, but yeah, it's there on the slides. The fast fashion, cosmetics, and skincare industry benefited heavily from social media trends, and especially with the I'm Just a Girl trend in motion, fast fashion brands like fast fashion brands profited from the trend by offering the aesthetic of girlhood, pink, lacy, frilly, trendy, and often disposable clothing. The algorithm-based production model of fast fashion brands like Temu and Shein reacts to viral content in just a few days, transforming micro-trends into products at a rapid pace. This places heavy strain on employees, a significant number of whom are low-income women, who encounter hazardous working environments with little to no safeguards. Class dynamics are stark here, where the privileged perform aesthetics while the working class sustains the system. It is also quite ironic how the women involved in the production of the items that sustain this gendered aspect of trends and overconsumption are the ones who are excluded from such trends, since they do not have the material possessions and aesthetics necessary for inclusion. The effects of overconsumption thus affects the lowest and most vulnerable parts of the population, who themselves are unaware in them being complicit in the production process, and that too out of compulsion to sustain their livelihood. To conclude, I would like to say that the media we consume and interact with bears real-world significance. It doesn't just exist in a social vacuum, but is a reflection of society and bears testimony to the social maladies still plaguing us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Devupama. You have, been within the time limits, but as you said that your topic is a little off from the focus of this particular technical session, but then at the end you did bring back with whether it is ecofeminism, the feminism which you have described, possibly it is eco-unfriendly, so that way it fits in with the section itself. Yes. So about questions, we will keep it at the end. So let us finish all these 5 presentations, and if there are some questions on your paper, you will have to answer.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Now the second one, Parthasarathi Sarkar, Gender Duality and Rural Bengal, Lord Shiva in the Ecofeminist Era. It's from Tripura University. So you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Partha.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for giving me this chance and opportunity to present something relating to Lord Shiva. In a day when we are living in a country when the Sri Rama is just political agenda now, so we have to see back. I'm fine with my voice. Okay, fine. So we are living in the country where Rama, the god, has become a political agenda. It may have a lot of relations and significance, but especially what we want to say that Lord Rama or the ultimate spirituality has become something kind of political. But we have to think it back because in India, the land of spirituality, where Swami Vivekananda told that in the whole world we can get a lot of things, but the whole world can get the spirituality from India. That is the India. And when we are just living in this condition, that politicization is overlapping the ultimate realization of own self, then it is very much important to see how development can be drawn from the spiritualistic ground. And from that perspective, being a doctoral scholar in the Tripura University Rural Development, I have taken a specific study, and by including the name like rural Bengal, because Gandhiji once upon a time told the whole India lives in the villages. And still, if we are just looking back about the rurality, then it is around 60% of the total Indian citizens are living in the rural places. And they are living without even basic amenities in their lives. A lot of problems, a lot of vulnerabilities. So here I am just starting now. Introduction in rural Bengal, because we have already known, means with the Gajan, the Charak, and all the festivals much related with the Lord Shiva. We are from the social science, basically from the sociology or media science. So it is our day-to-day activity and our research thinking to see how spirituality can be effectively dealt with the human living. And in this condition, I have seen about the rural Bengal, where Lord Shiva is not simply a male deity, rather there is a form of Ardhvanarishwara. When we are just telling about the eco-feminization, then someone should say, where is the eco-masculinization? Because our society has three genders now, from the third gender to the male and woman. So if we are just considering eco-feminization, then it is not a complete study at all, as per my understanding. Because a society is not for the women, not for the men. They both have the equality, and Lord Shiva is symbolizing it. And you know that Shiva has diverse from, like Nataraja to Vairava to Ardhvanarishwara. And from the form of dance, of creation, to the fears of destruction, to the androgynous form of totality. Means Lord Shiva can be seen in everywhere. And what is the eco-feminization? Eco-feminization not only with the woman or nature or like the other things like the environment or the gender equality, but it is also relating with the patriarchy. But we are not considering the patriarchy much when we are saying about the woman. But should a society can be completed if we just develop the woman? Women have a lot of atrocities, a lot of problems in their lives, definitely. But if we are not considering men as well, then how can development be possible for a complete society? So I have made the review of literature here, and I have tried to make a balance between the masculine and feminine. And I have taken the inclusive formation for the interdependences of the studies of the subjects. Social science is not a simple subject. A lot of subjects are there, from the political science to the sociology to the philosophy and many other subjects. So if we want to make a society, then also we have to go on that same line. So an interdisciplinary approach is much needed. And why the study? Because limited integration of ecofeminist theory with Hindu philosophical concepts like Ardhanarishwara in rural contexts and all the things. Due to the paucity of time, I am not elaborating much. So, with my study objectives, I have tried to see about the explore gender duality to analyze ecofeminist era because there are some kind of specific study needs. And for the methodology, I am much dependent upon secondary sources, though I have gone through a realistic understanding also from the Pathar Pratima block, community development block, from the Indian Sundarban. But it was during the 2017, June-July month. And discussion. I think for the color you can't see all the things, but as I can say that I have tried to see how the women are doing not only their domestic labor or labor for some earning, but the devotional labor, though not understanding what they are doing, but still they are doing. And Shiva Shakti complementarity can be seen in a society which is much vulnerable and much backward even, you know. So a critical note that not it is for the romanticism that we have worked some kind of ecofeminist and some kind of ecofeminist thought I have made. No, it is not for the romanticism. It is for the complete understanding of ourselves. And here, if we just say about the premises as I have already told, and then inferences and testable indicators are there. Because of the policy translation, we have to see a complete picture. And discussion from household surveys, n is equal to 60, means total 60 households I only considered at that time. From the Sitarampur, Govindapur and Dakshin Kali, all the villages are under the community development block, namely Pathar Pratima. And I have made a women's participation index, as you can see here. So discussion, that if we are just considering the villages, then you can see all the villages are not having the equal condition or the equal development perspective. So there are the differences. You can see in this table that Sitarampur, Govindapur and Dakshin Kali, from the three villages in Dakshin Kali and Sitarampur, the both are on the bank of Matla River. Women's active roles can be seen. They are doing their ritual activities, self-help groups, and all the other things, from the economical to the spiritual. But if we are just considering the other block, means the Govindapur, which is a little bit far away from the Matla River and a landlocked almost, not like the Dakshin Kali or Sitarampur village, then we can see that the ecofeminist perspective is much less. And it is a male-dominant society in that specific area. Because you know that when environmental challenges are there, then some opportunities are also there for becoming much ecofeminist. Because in a complicated society, both the genders have to work, otherwise they cannot much survive. So inferences, where women join in Shiva river rituals, means the Mata river is nearby and they are just devoting themselves to Lord Shiva. They take part in mangrove planting and farm planning by making some kind of SHGs. They are taking joint decision with their male counterparts, and their cultural unity, like the Ardhanarishwara, as I have already told, can be seen here for the eco-cooperation. And it is was ground level, though I have visited only one block and 3 villages, so it is not at all a very prolific and big picture, but still we can say something. So we can say that where men and women share both ownership and work, the land recovers faster. So here is the complete result, that link ritual gatherings with eco-awareness drives, train both genders in nature-based livelihood programs, and then support the village level eco-Shiva committees as cultural environmental institutions. And if the culture and the environment is developing, then naturally our society also developing, our culture also developing, and all the persons are getting the development. So here I have mentioned about the references. And in a conclusion, I have said this, that Ardhanarishwara mirrors ecofeminist of this present day in the postmodern age, and Shiva and Lord Parvati can be in an equal position, not a different, not a separate position, and not it is ecofeminist, not it is eco-masculinist, but eco, and both the genders should be there, androgynous. And it can be seen not in a very developed society, even in a very, very vulnerable and rural Bengal, even in Sundarban area, we can see ecofeminist. So way forwards, integrate indigenous knowledge, gender inclusive policy design has to be made not in the modern society only, but from the rural, and interdisciplinary researches are there, as NEP has told already, and cultural vitalization programs should be initiated and sustainable development should be there. So with this, I am ending here by taking much time with a quote by Swami Vivekananda, by saying, Shiva is everywhere. Shiva is not a lord. Shiva is ourselves. So, thank you very much.
Okay, Parthasarathi, good that you have kept within the time limits. And your approach is also quite new, trying to redefine feminism, bringing in the masculine part also, with taking a holistic approach. But you will have to wait. You know, I mean, we will have the question answer session after all the 5 presentations are over.
Sure.
So we'll go into the next next presentation. It is Shruti Mukherjee, narrating resistance, ecofeminism, and indigenous epistemologies in Maheshwara Devi's literary activities. She is from Jadavpur University. You should also keep yourself within the limit of 10 minutes.
The post-colonial literary landscape is profoundly marked by narratives of resistance. Yet few voices have related the intersection of gendered and ecological exploitation with the immediacy, like Maheshwara Devi, the Bengali novelist, short story writer, and above all, a social activist. Her literary corpus, rooted in the meticulous field research among the Adivasi communities of eastern India, serves not merely a documentation, but a radical form of literary activism. She has lent voice to the tribals whom she characterizes as suffering spectators of India that is traveling towards the 21st century. This paper examines Devi's fiction through the mutually reinforcing lenses of ecofeminism and indigenous knowledge system, arguing that her work constructs a profound critique of the dual oppression of women and nature under patriarchal, capitalist, and colonial regimes. By focusing on the seminal short stories, The Hunt and Draupadi, this study will first detail the ecofeminist principle that tie the violence against the tribal woman's body to the destruction of the land. Secondly, it will analyze how Devi's work engages with the problem of the subaltern voice, particularly the ways her protagonists debunk the state and patriarchal power structure. Finally, the paper will explore how her narrative mobilizes indigenous identity rooted in deep connection to the earth as a strategy for political resistance, reimagining sustainable futures based on justice and self-determination. Ecofeminism as a theory was developed in the 1970s alongside other environmental, radical, and political movements. According to the tenets of ecofeminism, women have an affirmative and close relationship with nature. This is due to the female reproductive role and mothering responsibilities which bring them close to the rhythm of the nature. However, the role of women as nurturers make them more vulnerable to the consequences of ecological destruction. There is a direct link between the oppression of nature and women. Sexism and naturism is inseparable. Since patriarchy is based on dualism, dominating the mind over the body, male over female, and culture over nature, it discriminates the other of the pair. Ecofeminism brings together the concerns of human activities over non-human world and ways by which patriarchy exploit and subordinate women. Maria Mies, a sociologist and an eminent theorist of ecofeminism, in her essay, White Man's Dilemma, his search for what he has destroyed, points out that the patriarchal tendency of exoticizing nature as a gateway of wilderness, which they have mindlessly exploited for profit-driven materialistic enterprises. The nature has been treated as a colony for exploitation and subjugation. The colonizers exoticized the wilderness of South Asian subcontinent and treated it as a feminine element. The tourist publicity of first world countries is to sell the so-called native experiences with close proximity with nature. Even in literature, we see the translation is used as a weapon, where Western poets like William Jones have translated Sanskrit plays of Kalidasa, Persian poems of Hafiz, and has constantly tried to exoticize and represent the East as effeminate. A similar kind of master-slave relation is operative towards the women's body. The tendency of the capitalist model of harnessing and commodifying nature is extended to their intention of treating women bodies as sexual commodity. But instances of resistance of women to protect ecological devastation is always observed through mass movement and literature. The sense of justice and resistance of women, previously presented as women's issue, have now become a part of social issue and represents the society at large. Indigenous women's function in the development and conservation of biodiversity has been considered as non-existent. Indigenous setting, sacred beliefs and practices are devoid of exploitive patriarchal practice as the core of the ecological cycles responsible for sustainable production. The Chipko movement in 1974 was portrayed as a women's movement by ecofeminists when women saved indigenous trees from the axe by physically hugging them, of the empathy for the environment when the state launched a project to replace these Himalayan trees by planting commercially lucrative eucalyptus trees. But the actual truth lies in the fact that the Uttarakhand was a state without young men. Most of them had migrated to the plains in search of work. The farming community was composed almost entirely of women. In effect, these indigenous women were the society itself. Chipko was the movement of the farming society against the policies of government which did not sync with their needs and would hamper their livelihood and health. It was a social movement led by women rather than a women's movement. What is true for Chipko movement is also true in case of women in literature. Mahashweta Devi's literary works dives deeper into concept of ecofeminism with respect to tribal women. In the book Imaginary Maps by Devi, in conversation with Spivak, Devi traces back to Indian mythology. Sita, who has been referred as South Indian trial. Sita from the Ramayana is not a human queen, but instead an embodiment of nature itself. She is identified like the wind in the grass, the flowing river, fruit-bearing trees, and harvest. These communities preserve their history, which include being skilled in agriculture alongside other forest-dwelling hunting tradition through their songs and oral tradition. In this context, Sita, regarded as Bhumi Devi, has been a subject of exploitation at the hands of Ravana, representing patriarchy. Sita is linked to the exploitation of indigenous women, Dopti and Bhikni, in Devi's short stories, Draupadi and the Hunt. Mahashweta Devi's acquaintance with tribal people took place in 1965 in an impoverished district in Bihar. To his utter dismay, she observed the tribals being forced into accepting the capitalist ideology of marginalization and oppression in the name of development. Being marginalized, the tribals, more precisely the tribal women, have remained muted and isolated from the mainstream. Mahashweta Devi's story, The Hunt, revolves around the Oraon tribals' Joniporob hunting festival. The festival, originally for protecting the tribe and its environment, uniquely include young women who go for a hunt instead of the men. Like the protagonist, Mary is an independent, strong woman born of a Oraon mother and an Australian father who commands fear and respect in her community. Targeted by the predatory outsider Tehsildar Singh, who symbolizes male sexual violence, Mary decides to retaliate. Devi illustrates through the character of Tehsildar Singh the contractor who represents the nexus of capitalist patriarchy and exploitation. Tehsildar's primary business is illegal deforestation of the sal forest in Kuruda, which are the livelihood of the tribal Oraon community. His motive is purely mercenary, reflecting the capitalist drive that views nature only from its economic values. Tehsildar views the protagonist, Mary Oraon, a beautiful and independent tribal woman, with the same possessive, exploitive gaze he applies to the land and the sal trees. His plot to sexually exploit Mary on the day of the tribal hunt ritual equates his intended sexual violence against her body with the ongoing environmental violence against the forest. The narrator notes that Tehsildar came to hunt Mary, demonstrating the link between the traditional male hunt and the patriarchal hunt for women and resources. Mary Oraon's final act of resistance is deeply rooted in her connection to nature, embodying the ecofeminist idea that the liberation of women and nature must be achieved together. The climax sees Mary kill Tehsildar Singh on the day of the traditional Joni Porob, the women's ritual hunt. She effectively reclaims the ritual's original significance, a hunt for justice, by making the exploiter the ultimate prey. The act of a dramatic reversal of power as Mary, the intended victim, becomes the hunter. The biggest beast is the predator, patriarch, capitalist, and by eliminating him, Mary achieves a self-realization that transcends her personal trauma, linking her victory to the fearlessness of wild itself. The annual women's hunting ritual, Janiparab, in itself is a cultural marker of tribal people's profound and sustainable relationship with land. Mary's final act revives the Joni Porob as the vehicle for environmental justice and resistance. If we dive deeper into the issue of tribal women's sexual exploitation, it is observed that Adivasi women are not abused by men of their own community, but they are victimized by the men of the mainstream society. In Imaginary Maps, Devi says, among the tribals, insulting a woman is the greatest crime. Rape is unknown to them. Women have a place of honor in the tribal society. One of the causes of the great Santhal revolt of 1855 was the raping of tribal women. In the essay, Can the Subaltern Speak, by Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak argues that the subaltern, particularly the female subaltern, who is doubly marginalized by caste and patriarchy, cannot speak for herself because her voice is either filtered, misrepresented, or silenced by hegemonic discourse. Any attempt by the privileged intellectual to speak for the subaltern simply reinforces the very structures that perpetuate their silence. Mahashweta Devi's protagonists like Dopti Mejen in the short story Draupadi embody this condition, facing a triple yoke of subalternity. Firstly, they are Adivasi, which determines their ethnicity, poverty determining the class, and thirdly, they are female. The protagonist Dopti, after being brutally gang raped by the state officials, refuses to put on clothes and confronts the officer with a naked body, yelling, "Come on, counter me, come on, counter me." Her ultimate act of resistance is her body, becoming the signifier, a refusal to accept the shame and be reclothed, which would mean to be recodified by the dominant patriarchal system. Her ravaged body is the brutal answer to the question of whether she can speak by making the private political and public. Through powerful, unflinching narratives, character like Dopti, Mahashweta Devi demonstrates the subaltern does communicate their resistance, transforming their suffering into a fearless, defiant, and political voice. Other than sexual exploitation, tribals face exploitation based on labor and wages. In the story Hunt, the question arises why the tribal women Mary, compelled to work for prasad even when she is paid nothing. If she is bold enough to comfort Tehsildar Singh, why does she accept her labor being exploited in the prasad house? The answer to this question lies in the fact that she needs a shelter to live. Through the exploitation of her labor, she is able to find a shelter over her head and an opportunity to collect mahua fruit, which will provide her some earning. The other tribal people of her village are hired for felling trees at less wages, as low as 12 annas for men and 8 annas for women. In spite of such low wages, they are ready to work for the simple reason that they have no other jobs available. As Devi says, they cannot keep their land, there is no education and health facilities for them, no roads, no way to generate income. Nothing is done for them, though so much money is allotted for them. But the answer we are still in search of is, what is the reason behind the exploitation? It is not poverty that causes tribal exploitation. Rather, the master's mindset, the dominating mindset of society, resists equally between tribal and non-tribals. Raising consciousness among people through the help of print and social media is necessary. Making of policy is not sufficient, and execution of it must be ensured. One of Mahashweta Devi's short story, The Arrow, published in Bortika, a quarterly journal on society and culture, very skillfully blends community awareness with the idea of indigenous identity. The story is about a young journalist in Kolkata who identified himself as an earthworm, as someone who can dig out story from grassroots level. The man is physically distinct, having negroid features and dark hair, suggesting he may belong to one of the ancient marginalized Adivasi of Andaman. And he considers himself as the Bhumiputra, the son of native soil. Earthworm is an anomaly. He is a tribal man working as a journalist, yet he has a profound, almost spiritual connection to his indigenous roots. He tells the narrator, I speak to the earth tells me everything, I listen. The statement immediately establishes a core theme. His indigenous epistemology, knowledge gained through communion with the natural world, is his primary authority overshadowing his modern occupation. He explains that the tree, the earth, and nature all speak, but modern society refuses to listen. Lamenting, we often forget to listen. Isn't that the case? But they want to speak, I know. While addressing the problems of deforestation, this man, who identifies himself as an earthworm, makes a symbolic metaphor. There were no jungles, so the elephant came down to the paddy field to eat. She had just put a bunch of paddy in her mouth. They killed it, calling it a mad elephant. It was a female elephant, a baby in her womb. The statement merges the suffering of the animal world with the experience of the female reproductive body. The elephant is not just an animal. It is a female elephant with a baby in its womb. By highlighting the pregnancy, Devi instantly links the violence against the wild creature to violence against maternity and life-giving force. This powerful image establishes the indigenous identity of unity between women, nature, and the cycle of life, a core ecofeminist principle that the dominant society violently disregards. By speaking for the pregnant elephant, the journalist implies that the violence done to any life bearer, human or non-human, is a violence against the community's future. His act of retelling these buried truths through his journalism transforms his individual marginalized self into the voice of a collective ecological and cultural identity that refuses to be silenced or assimilated. Mahashweta Devi, through his literary creation, debunks mainstream mythological ideologies. The mythological character from Mahabharata, Draupadi, was stripped in court but saved by divine intervention, representing passive obedience to destiny. Devi's protagonist, Dopti Mejen.
Shruti, you are overshooting time. You will have to shorten it.
Devi's protagonist, Depti Mejen, however exploited by the state, actively refuses to be reclothed, instead choosing the present, her injured body, as a weapon against the patriarchy. This is deliberate rejection of dominant myth and the creation of an indigenous embodied heroine of resistance. Mahashweta Devi's literary activism does not merely critique oppression. It provides a blueprint for resistance and a framework for a sustainable future. It demands a decolonization of development policies, indigenous land rights, and women's self-determination are inseparable elements of ecological justice. The way forward requires shifting from profit-driven exploitation to the indigenous ethical model, where the land is respected as a nurturing entity. Secondly, the theoretical dilemma of the subaltern voice by establishing the embodied act as a political speech. This necessitates a change in how activist and social workers, scholars engage by giving priority to direct unmediated action and cultural memory of marginalized community over elite intellectual interpretation. In essence, it is a perpetual challenge to the mainstream that it is not enough to document the suffering of the subaltern, but necessary way forward is to create their indigenous knowledge system and act of resistance as the core model for building an ecologically resilient society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shruti. Well, it's a complex idea, Mahashita Debi's, but you have tried to make it simple. You will have to wait to, attend some questions, okay, till at the end. We'll go on to the next speaker, Rajan De, who is also from Jadavpur University, Monsoon Kitchens and Embodied Knowledge, Eco-Feminist Foodscapes in a Bengali Home. Please try to restrict yourself to 10 minutes.
A very good morning to all the guests present here. My name is Rajanya De. I'm a third-year sociology student at Jadavpur University, and I'll be speaking on monsoon kitchens and embodied knowledge, eco-feminist foodscapes in a Bengali home. Before I start, I'd like to say that this was a part of another project where I was recording soundscapes of the Bengali kitchen to understand how knowledge is transmitted among women, an entire knowledge system that is found within Bengali cooking. And this paper is an extension of that. Summers in Bengal are a season of terrible and oppressive heat. Temperatures rise well above 45 degrees Celsius. Quoting the Sanskrit poet Kalidas from his famous work Meghdootam, Asharya Prathama Divase, one can expect that the first day of the monsoons would indeed be celebratory. While it is expected that the rains start in the beginning of June, every year it is some weeks early or late, which the Bengalis celebrate with great pleasure. As with every other occasion, the ritual drenching of the first rain is celebrated in the Bengali kitchen with a simple yet grand feast of khichuri and fried greens and even fish. The khichuri, which is one of the oldest surviving Bengali dishes, as humble as it sounds, is a grand weapon of Bengali housewives. Made with spices, it can be transformed into a delicacy. Such is the popularity of the dish that the British took it home as kedgeree. As the rains intensify, the local market is flooded with vegetables such as water spinach, pumpkins, banana blossoms, taro, and so on. The Bengali kitchen adapts fantastically to these seasonal offerings. The act of food preparation is a deliberate choice, depending on availability, price of materials, harvest, taste, and preferences of family members. The kitchen, which is centrally under the control of a housewife in the Hindu household, becomes a space to exercise agency and decision-making. For different women, the act of preparing a dish a certain way comes from familial traditions of their birth as well as marital homes. A knowledge system that has been intergenerationally transmitted among mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and wives. The act of making food is cultural, ecological, and a gendered practice. Now, I have deliberately chosen to focus on monsoon kitchens because the entire Bengali plate is very difficult to focus on, and my paper therefore focuses on a particular season's offerings, and also because while having conversations with my respondents, I came to know that women exercise, that cooking is simply not an act that women perform. There are multiple decisions that go behind it, and there are acts of memory, acts of resistance, the way families are connected. And I try to explore what goes on behind the regular decision making of cooking. I also came to know that Within domestic culinary traditions, practices of seasonality, no-waste cooking, and resourceful use of local produce have long enacted forms of ecological care. Vandana Shiva argues that women's knowledge, rooted in everyday labor and embodied skill and ecological attunement, has historically been dismissed by patriarchal systems of science and industrial food production. By attending to sensory, gendered, and intergenerational practices of monsoon kitchens, this paper challenges the marginalization of such knowledge and reclaims it as a form of ecological resilience. In doing so, it situates the Bengali kitchen as a site for both cultural continuity and ecofeminist resistance. As sub-questions, this paper examines sensory knowledge that is revealed through touch, smell, rhythm, heat, and sound as vital to understanding the cooking experience. The primary field site is the author's own mother's kitchen space, where cooking was observed and documented as an embodied practice of ecological knowledge. Additionally, 2 other women were interviewed as a part of the project to better understand the breadth of monsoon culinary practices. Conversations and exchanges were attended in Shobha Bazaar's market, a key site for seasonal produce and fish circulation, and also the primary source of material for the respondent's kitchen. By combining domestic and market ethnography, the methodology situates the kitchen within a broader ecology of practice, foregrounding embodied, gendered, and ecological aspects of food preparation, central to ecofeminist analysis. I'll begin with a quote by Dr. Shiva, which says that modern reductionist science, like development, turns out to be a patriarchal project, which has excluded women as experts. And this is something that I have encountered while talking to my respondents, because they do not understand their knowledge of cooking as something which is a part of a knowledge system. And yet, these women have also been the ones to face famines. They have faced food scarcity. They have faced other challenges of economic insecurity and pulled their families through these times. So this kind of knowledge has no space or my aim was to understand why certain forms of knowledge are not considered so-called scientific or productive. In this picture, I have, in the first picture that you can see, I have put in some monsoon vegetables, primarily one of which is the taro. While speaking taro, which is in Bengali, we call it kochu, and this is a very varied vegetable in both Bangal and Ghoti kitchens. Among the Ghotis, it is a delicacy that is prepared in multiple ways, primarily in both vegetarian and non-vegetarian ways. But what was interesting to me was one of my respondents told me her memories of the Great Bengal famine. During this famine, taro, wild taro, which was available through only foraging practices, was used by their family as an alternate food source. And therefore, even today, when they cook taro in their homes, it is a way to honor this knowledge. Apart from that, we have kolmi shak, which is water spinach, which in the second picture. And finally, hilsha, which is considered a delicacy in Bengali kitchens. And yet, as these women cook, they cook with the understanding that there can be moments of both scarcity and abundance in their kitchen. So these are skills, these cooking skills of how to cook with whatever is available has been passed intergenerationally, as I write, through touch, sight, and intuition. And these cooking practices, you know, they are embodied. These are embodied forms of knowledge. These are not abstract or theoretical. They come from constant practice and repetition over years, because all my respondents have been cooking for 20 years plus. And these are forms of knowledge which I do not see considered as scientific, and yet they are. Gendered labor and transmission. So I look at cooking, I cannot speak of the general population, but of the respondents that I have interviewed. For them, it has passed on from mothers to daughters, and therefore I call it a gendered act. But I also use the term resistance and identity because women negotiate multiple challenges of their own. For example, my mother's own kitchen space was inspired by her mother cooking before her. And when she came from her father's house to her marital home, she brought in with her a tradition of cooking. And we followed that. Knowledge passed through mothers, daughters, and grandmothers is what we call as intergenerational pedagogy. Now, I'll read a short excerpt from my paper. Sarah Pink's sensory ethnography provides a methodological lens for studying such embodied practices. She argues that the human experience is inherently multisensory, and ethnographers must attend to touch, smell, sound, taste, and sight in their analysis. This multisensory knowledge is also found in women's kitchens. The ear recognizes when the rice water begins to boil over, the nose discerns when spices are just right, and the eye measures the translucency of the fish flesh to know doneness. One of the finest examples of this tactile and sensory practice was seen when my mother went to buy hilsha at the local market. She judged it critically by pressing the belly of the fish for the presence of prized eggs, the streamlined shape of it, the oiliness that oozes out of it. The hilsha, which is often eaten with rice, is a beloved delicacy of the Bengalis. The aromatically pungent oil is a flavoring agent on steaming rice along with mashed ulgopi. The author's mother is careful to balance out the oiliness of the entire meal with the blandness of the kohlrabi, and additionally, a bati chachuri, which is with the less prized head of the hilsha, which is another thing that I come to, which is scrappy cooking, because in Bengal, we have the practice of using every part of a vegetable and fish. We typically do not like to waste. But this is not what we call a fashionable sustainability or something which can be shown. This comes out of a necessity because Bengal has been very familiar with famines. And as my mother also recounts, that food scarcity at home had often also had her turn heads to find other ways of cooking. For example, this rainy season, while I was having a conversation, she told me that poppy seeds have suddenly become very expensive. So poppy seed is a great flavoring agent for many Bengali dishes. So how do you deal with that sudden scarcity? So you find alternative ways of cooking. You use peanuts and you use white sesame seeds in exchange of that flavoring agent. So I take these small acts of rebellion as, of maintaining a home. This is not something which is spoken about a lot, but these small acts of resistance, they exist. There are other dishes that my respondents cook, such as the peels of gourd, then the peels of potatoes, and these are made into delicacies through resourcefulness. Then prawn heads, which are usually thrown out. And monsoon scarcity for vegetables also, fosters this sense of creativity among cooks. And we learn to cook with whatever is available rather than delicacies as such. And I have had the privilege of having some of these dishes as well. Finally, I go to the ecofeminist insights which I have received from this. That Bengali kitchens function as spaces of resistance and ecological continuity. I say this because one part of my paper is actually missing from my presentation, which is the market ecologies part. So all my respondents have had intimate relations with the sellers of the market. So they personally know the sellers, and what happens is that there develops an informal relation and conversation. When my respondents go to the market, they can bargain with their favorite sellers, and they acknowledge the skill, definitely the skill of these women, and they often give extra pieces or maybe extra or the finest quality material. From my own house, I can say that there is definitely a relation between the market and the kitchen, because well, whatever is available is what the Bengali woman is going to cook, and not only cook, it's not just providing 2 to 3 meals a day, it is providing 2 to 3 well cooked and delicious meals a day, because that which would ultimately lead to satisfaction, which brings me to my next point, that embodied labor enacts care, sustainability and resilience. One of the most important parts of working with or talking to these women was that they take their job very seriously. As homemakers, they do understand that their food is going to be consumed by other members of the family, and therefore they cannot just cook anything. It has to come from both a place of it has to come from both a place of going with the market and what is available, but also what is available in the market, their own kitchen, but it is also has to be delicious, because at the end of the day, they take their responsibility of care very seriously. And there are certain challenges that I have understood, that this transmission of this knowledge of care, because my mother and I had a very complicated discussion relating to this. While she wants to pass on this knowledge of cooking and care to me, she's also very observant of the fact that it becomes primarily a woman's duty in the kitchen to understand these forms of knowledge. So she is hesitant to teach me how to cook, because she wants me to primarily focus on my education. And yet, this tradition that she has received from her mother before her, and the person has received from before them, is an entire knowledge system which would be lost if I do not participate in this act of cooking. So there lies certain challenges. The challenge is the patriarchal notions of valid knowledge. This was a huge question to me, as what is considered as scientific knowledge, because these women, they have been feeding their families for centuries, but traditionally this knowledge has not been considered very valid. I speak in the context of my own grandmother, who is a mere school pass out, but her definitive knowledge of the kitchen, her mastery over ingredients, and the way she just knows when things have been cooked, she knows the freshest produce just by looking at it, has unfortunately not received a lot of attention from family members. And I finally say that sustainability emerges from lived and gendered experiences. It's not a very Instagram friendly or social media friendly practice of sustainability. It's something that has come through generations of, as I keep reiterating, it has come through generations of scarcity, of facing crises. So these are the lived experiences which often get removed. We think of sustainability as this very modern concept which has come in the age of social media, but that's not true. Scrappy cooking, what we call Instagram friendly scrappy cooking, has always been a part of the Bengali kitchen. That is how we have learned to live with our environmental challenges. So that is something that I have understood.
So you will have to sort of wind up.
Yeah, sir, I am almost done with my presentation, and yeah, thank you for listening.
Wait for some questions, if there are some questions if they ask. So at the end, we have another speaker. After the last speaker is over, there may be a few questions. The last speaker is Kajol Dash. She's from Bhubaneswar, reimagining ecotourism through ecofeminism, pathways for gender and environmental justice in Global South. So again, I need to request that please keep it within 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to all the respected professors and my fellow participants present here.
I am Kajal Das. I am a PhD research scholar at National Institute of Science Education and Research, Bhubaneswar. My title of the topic is Reimagining Ecotourism through Ecofeminism, Pathways for Gender and Environmental Justice in the Global South. Ecotourism is often described as a form of responsible travel that helps conserve the environment and support local livelihoods. However, when we look deeper, especially in the context of the Global South, we see that ecotourism does not always live up to its promise. Women who are central to local culture and environment often remain at the margin of tourism development. They participate actively, yet their contributions are undervalued and their voices remain unheard in decision making. This is where ecofeminism becomes meaningful. Ecofeminist thinkers like Vandana Shiva and Bina Agrawal in India remind us that domination of women and the exploitation of nature come from the same root, a patriarchal and capitalist mindset that prioritize profit, power, control over care, interdependence, and equality. So the key objective of my paper is to reimagine ecotourism through an ecofeminist lens, exploring how it can promote gender justice and environmental sustainability in the Global South. So why Global South? I followed a qualitative and interpretative approach, analyzing secondary data from books, journal articles, and reports. The method I adopted is known as feminist interpretism. It seeks to understand human experiences and power relationship through empathy, reflexivity, and lived realities. The Global South, which include Asia, Africa, and Latin America, is not just a map of nation, but a shared story of struggle, survival, and strength. This region holds most of the world's biodiversity, that is 80%, but also face the deepest environmental and social crisis, from deforestation to climate injustice. Here, women's lives are closely linked to nature through farming, water collection, and care work. So when the environment suffers, women are the first to feel its impact. Most development and ecotourism models brought here come from Western and patriarchal systems that talk about sustainability but often silence local voices. Ecofeminism offers a way forward. It shows that Global South is not a victim of change, but a teacher of transformation, a place where local women and communities practice real sustainability through care, balance, and respect for all life. As Vandana Shiva reminds us through her idea of earth democracy, every human being, whether human or non-human, has an equal right to live and thrive. To understand how gender and ecology intersect within ecotourism, I examined several case studies from the Global South, each showing both progress and persistent challenges. Let's begin with Vietnam, where community-based ecotourism projects have helped women gain income, confidence, and even leadership roles within their villages. Here we can apply a long-wish empowerment framework which measures empowerment through 5 levels, that is welfare, access, consultation, and participation and control. The findings from Vietnam reflect progress up to the participation level, but so that control, true decision-making power, still remain largely out of women's reach. So while women's economic condition improved, social hierarchies like caste, class, and domestic roles continue to restrict their autonomy. Then moving to Kenya, ecotourism has become an important livelihood strategy for women, allowing them to diversify income and reduce dependence on the traditional agriculture. However, it reveals a pattern we often see in the global south. Women become the faces of sustainability, but not the voices behind the decisions. In gender theory, this reflects what Naila Kabir calls the difference between resources, agency, and achievements. Women may gain resources through ecotourism, but agency, the ability to make meaningful choices and decisions, it is still denied to them. An inspiring case comes from Indonesia, where a women's collective known as Perempuan Singkong, it is meaning the women of cassava, transformed traditional cassava farming into a form of agro-ecotourism. This initiative beautifully demonstrates ecofeminist praxis. It shows that when women traditional and ecological knowledge is integrated into local tourism economies, sustainability becomes community-led, not market-driven. Here, women move from being passive participants to knowledge bearers and cultural leaders. In India's Corbett Tiger Reserve, we see the opposite. Even when women are involved in tourism-related work, their participation remains largely symbolic. They are excluded from the core planning and management decisions due to structural barriers such as elite domination, lack of access to information, and deeply rooted patriarchal attitudes. This situation illustrates Sylvia Walby's concept of patriarchal structures where social institutions reproduce male dominance despite the appearance of inclusivity. So even within community-based ecotourism, patriarchy redefines participation in a way that keeps women at the margins. And finally, in Latin America, the women are mostly found in low-paid service-oriented roles like cooking, handicrafts, and hospitality, while men control managerial and policy-level positions. This gender division of labor mirrors the Marxist feminist critique that capitalism and patriarchy together rely on women's unpaid or underpaid work to sustain the larger system of economic gain. When we critically analyze all these examples together, a clear pattern emerges. Ecotourism can indeed open spaces for women's empowerment, but only if it challenges the very structure that reproduces the gender inequality. True transformation occurs not when women are invited to participate in ecotourism, but when they are trusted to lead it. Women's position in ecotourism, like across regions, women form the social and cultural backbone of ecotourism, but remain marginalized in power structures. The labor is essential. Their labor is essential, like preparing food and taking care of guest houses, selling handmade products, and maintaining cultural heritage, but rarely recognized as professional work. Empowerment in tourism must therefore move beyond economic participation to transformative inclusion, ensuring that women shape and define what sustainability means in their communities. So it's like my personal opinion. There are so many definitions of women empowerment, but from my observation and from my personal experience, true empowerment means when you are contributing to decision making. I have observed working women with no say in family matters and housewives whose opinions shape household decisions. When a housewife's voice matters, her work is respected. In the same way, the ecotourism sector must value women's decisions because participation without power is not empowerment. This reflection aligns with Agrawal's study that empowerment is meaningful only when women gain control over resources and decisions, not just access to activities. Ecotourism is often seen as a green and sustainable form of travel, but when we closely through an ecofeminist lens, we see that it can sometimes harm both people and nature if it is not handled carefully. Sometimes tourism turns nature into a product. Forest, river, witches, animals become things to sell or show, rather than living people, living beings to care for. This way of thinking, treating nature as something to control and profit from, is a very similar to the way women's work and voices are often ignored or exploited. Bandana Shiva says that art should be treated as a living system, not as a machine or a marketplace. Her idea of art democracy again teaches that all living beings, including women, plants, and animals, have the right to live with dignity. When ecotourism becomes all about money, we lose this respect for life. Bina Agrawal explains that real empowerment comes when women have control and decision-making power, not just access to resources. So if the women work in ecotourism but can't make decisions about how it's run, that's not true empowerment or sustainability. Ariel Saleh reminds us that women's daily work, like farming, caring for families, collecting water, or preserving seeds, is also ecological work. These invisible efforts keep both nature and society alive, but they are rarely valued in ecotourism projects. Maria Mage points out the same system that exploits nature also exploits women's unpaid work. When ecotourism focuses only on profit, it repeats the same exploitation under the name of development. Caroline Merchant tells us that this way of thinking, where nature is seen as something to control, comes from old patriarchal and scientific tradition. Ecotourism must break away from that and return to a worldview of care and harmony. So ecofeminism teaches us that environmental problems are not just about pollution or deforestation, they're also about values. If ecotourism wants to be truly sustainable, it must replace greed with gratitude, control with care, and domination with coexistence.
So you are
Just
over
a
to
minute.
you. Please.
Ecofeminism gives us a set of guiding principles that can make ecotourism truly inclusive and sustainable. Firstly, ensure community ownership and shared governance. Women should be part of every decision-making committee, from planning to benefit distribution. Second, recognize women's indigenous ecological knowledge. Third, education and capacity building. Training programs should develop women's leadership, communication, and business skills so that they can manage tourism enterprises confidently. Fourth, adopt an intersectional approach that considers not just gender but also caste, class, and ethnicity. Fifth, ethical tourism practices like tourist guides and developers must follow economist ethics, ecofeminism ethics of respect and reciprocity rather than exploitation. By following these pathways, ecofeminism becomes both a theory and praxis connecting justice for women, justice for nature. Just concluding, to conclude, reimagining ecotourism through ecofeminism transfer it from a profit-oriented development model into a philosophy of coexistence. In the global south, where both women and nature have historically been exploited, ecofeminism allows us to view them as agents of renewal and resilience. By combining Vandana Shiva's art democracy, which calls for equality among all forms of life, and Bina Agral's participatory environmentalism, which emphasizes shared power and cooperation, I propose what I call an eco-gender revolution. True ecotourism is not about visiting pristine places, it's about building respectful, equal, and sustainable relationship between people, gender, and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Kajal. So with her presentation, we come to the end. We had these 5 presentations, very varied and very interesting. So we don't have much time. I mean, now the thing is, if there are questions on any one of these 5 presentations, please. If anyone would like to ask anyone on any issue, you are welcome.
I must first congratulate her that she has presented it well and a very innovative thought she has made. But I just like to know from her that do you think that cooking is a very gender specific job? And if it is not, then
Uh, Thank
so
you.
if it is not, then if your father or some elder brother or younger brother is cooking, then do you think the ways which your mother is cooking, that will be different?
Sir, I'd say that cooking is a gendered experience, not as a universal claim, but because my respondents have said that they have passed on that knowledge to their daughters. And point to be noted that some of them have both sons and daughters, and yet their daughters are the one they have chosen to pass on this knowledge to. And I do not think that, well, my father has now become a secondary cook in the family, and he is here. And I can say with great claim that his ways of cooking and my mother's ways of cooking are quite different, because they do not learn from the same family system. That is important. And also, I, as a person, have not learned cooking from my mother. That is both a personal choice and because she would not let me into a kitchen, which is why I said that you cannot universalize these things. These are also personal experiences. Like my mother does not want me to be in the kitchen until I reach of a certain age, because she feels, or rather she felt, that it would be detrimental to my education. So yeah, these small thought processes, they do exist.
My question was quite different. That I was asking with your research title, which I have seen in the the schedule. So I have seen there that you have written like something like women and feminist perspective and all the things What you have written, you better know because I have not memorized it. So I just like to say that what is your observation? What do you observe that cooking is only for the males or females, or it is gender specific or not? And then if a person like me, I am a male and I am getting my body as a male. So if I am cooking, then should I do something different when there are no poppy seed? So then I will not go for another alternative. Do you think that? I just ask this only.
As well, I have not included any male respondents within my study. Perhaps if I had, I would have gotten a very different perspective. So all my respondents were primarily women.
I just like to know the reason. That's the thing. Why you have not chosen any male? What is your observation that males should not be included in this study? What is your observation?
No, because there was no specific choice to be made that I would exclude males out of my study. It was simply, as I said, that I started speaking to the primary point of contact of cooking within my family, and then that branched out to some other mothers and homemakers. So it was not a very conscious decision to exclude males out of my study.
So at the time when you were considering your sample or the population, then you are not much conscious and not much aware that male are also cooking. So we have to consider this. That's the thing. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I'm barging in between
No,
this
ma'am, please.
discussion. Yeah, the whole question when we talk of men or women or anybody else is always in sociology context specific. So you may be cooking. I'm unsure whether your grandfather cooked.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that is the whole question, that when we talk about gendered experience, there is a pattern. You may be completely different, and maybe you cook and your partner doesn't cook, possible. But when we talk in sociology, we're talking about patterns. I know my grandfather didn't cook. My brother would experiment with cooking. I know that there are studies which would show that while in families, women cook normally, but say in big hotels, the chefs, the big chefs are men. Okay, so there is a pattern there because that becomes a public profession. Whereas here, so I think it's much more complicated. It's not to exclude men or include men, but as men and women or whatever, we are socially constructed. It's not a personal exclusion, inclusion. It's a pattern thing.
Yeah, it's I have seen with my respondents because they said specifically that it is in their experience that they pass on this knowledge to their daughters. So it's a way of respecting that experience.
No, if we are just considering the Odisha and the other places, then you definitely see, even in Kolkata, many Odia persons are there who are cooking in the household and in the occasions. So it is not like that, that men are not cooking or like that. But she has not considered it due to her research thought.
No, I think, I mean, she's right because her topic has been the Bengali homes. And usually the Bengali homes have, left to the mothers, to women. Yes, in bigger houses there are Oriya cooks, and even today in modern international chefs are all male. I mean, those are new areas of research. Why it happened, but it started with the women, and in this area of micro knowledge, I think. She's right in keeping it to the women and the kind of knowledge they have transmitted from one to the other, from the grandmother to mother and to their female child. That way, I think she's perfectly fine. But there can be scope to understand more, do more research, why there are, especially, from Orissa, why there are so many male cooks, and why today internationally we have all the chefs male rather than female. Those are other areas of research.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, any other question? There were so many different areas discussed. Anyone?
My question to Ms. Rajanna De, she has presented
Everyone on Rajanna, there were other speakers also. I mean, if you can concentrate on them, please.
Actually, I have some specific question. And first, I thank you for the authorities to invite and to accompany Ms. Rajanna De to be present here. And all the 5 scholars, junior scholars or research scholars, they have presented beautifully. But my specific questions to Ms. Rajanna De, he has shown in one of his slides that he has done field survey on Sobha Bazar market. That is, Sobha Bazar market is North Calcutta. I am from North Calcutta, born and brought up, and I resided there around 45 years. So what type of study, field survey she has done in Sobha Bazar market?
Sir, just a slight correction. It was not a field survey. I visited the market with my mother, and the way of gathering knowledge was through sensory ethnography, which is how women traditionally shop for materials. And I recorded conversations with fishmongers and vegetable sellers that women would usually go through. So it's not a survey, sir. That's how I collected my data. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Oh, I had a question to the first speaker.
Yes, please.
I'd just love to say that your presentation was brilliant, and we're all a part of this trend. So I would ask you, do you feel that there is, for girlhood, there is this extreme oscillation between girl boss feminism and the trad wife movement? And how do you contextualize the violence of what girlhood is? Because some sociological thinkers have called it girlhood is a really violent experience of these extremes. So how do you see that?
I think what you pointed out is definitely correct, that there's a very extreme oscillation between the two. And I think social media adds to this problem, and it's sort of like tribalism. Like if you're a part of one extreme, you have to adhere to every single thing that extreme stands for. And I do believe that if we all sort of think of gender identity as more than just an aesthetic, as more than just something we wear, as more than just something we do, as more than just colors. I feel like that is very important for us to understand, because I feel like also we need to unlearn a lot of things, we need to uncondition ourselves, and we need to relearn what we think of our gender itself, and that is very significant, because otherwise it is very easy to fall prey to, you know, social media aesthetics, which basically just aestheticize gender, and it turns this, as I said, it turns the lived gender experience into a theatrical performance. And so yeah, I do agree with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the question.
So, couple of questions for all the speakers, most of them. So, Rajonna, because everyone is asking you the question, so I would ask you. So,
Sure,
do you
ma'am.
cook and go to the market on a regular basis, or this was just for the study? Because as far as I understand, kohlrabi or old kopi, as we call it in Bangla, is available only in the winter. So, I'm not too sure whether it's a monsoon. It's part of the monsoon kitchen and couple of things. So then I'm also curious to understand why you chose a monsoon kitchen, because a winter kitchen in a Bengali household is much more varied. So what was your basis of this selection? And another thing is, when you're saying that, you know, from grandmothers to mothers to daughters, this is like oral tradition. Have you considered getting things written down? For example, my grandma, my Didima, was a wonderful cook. And she would cook with, you know, like quote unquote weird things like motor shuti khosha, like the cover of the pea, you know. So, and then we encouraged her to write things down. So, one of the precious possessions that I have now is my Didima's handwritten cookbook, right? So this is like wonderful. And so have you considered encouraging you know, women members of your family to do that, and would you consider that as part of your research?
So on the first question, I think it was not ol kopi that I meant, but ol, the vegetable that we eat, because that is usually eaten in my household during the rainy season along with ilish mach. So that's...
You also showed old kopi, which is kohlrabi.
Yeah, I think there might have been a typo over there. So yeah, thank you for that clarification. Your second question was why I chose monsoon kitchen. So the choice of monsoon kitchens was actually not deliberate. I was doing the work on Bengali seasonal cooking, but since this is the season of the monsoon, I decided to, you know, narrow my field of study. And also because with some of my respondents, certain vegetables were highlighted in their experience, and those are all the vegetables that are unfortunately found during the monsoon. For example, I give you a little bit of a glimpse into the history of taro and how it relates to family structures and famine. So those are vegetables that are found traditionally in the monsoon. So that's why the focus on monsoon kitchens. And thirdly, I would love to involve the women of my family. Actually, my mother passed away 1.5 months ago during the scope of this research, which is why I involved other women in this. So I didn't get a chance to learn cooking. So perhaps the other women in my family might give me certain recipes so that I can keep them as a family treasure. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I could ask just. Yes, so if I could just stand here and then face the speakers. So Shruti, you know, two things which came up, which is you might want to engage with Linda Tuhiwai Smith's work, where she talks about Southern epistemology and she's working with the Maori community. So you might want to engage with that. And you know, there was another question, or rather an observation on the study on girlhood, Debo Pama, right? Debo Pama, you might want to engage with Ishita Pandey's work. she is working on the history of childhood, because there, if you look at the sociology of childhood and historians who are engaging with childhood, they are approaching girlhood in a very different way. So that might kind of add to your research, right?
Yes, ma'am. I basically focused on the aspect of girlhood that became the trend, and I do understand that the lived experience is completely different from the thing that social media showed. And I elaborated on that as well, that it transforms the lived experience, which is completely different, into just a theatrical performance of aesthetics.
Yeah, because the way, for example, in mainstream Indian society, in the political sphere, how girlhood is getting interpreted, with the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, schemes and all of that. We were speaking about this yesterday as well in one of the presentations, right? So you might want to take a critical look at how girlhood is getting approached in different perspectives, and then bring in the interdisciplinary perspective.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And we'll continue the discussion later on then. Thank you, sir.
So I just had one clarification sort from Shruti. She mentioned the Chipko movement, and then related to Mahashweta Devi's epistemology. I mean, are you sort of associating Chipko movement with patriarchy and Mahashweta Devi with narratives with feminism? I mean, why? Or I didn't quite understand the relationship between Chipko movement and Mahashweta Devi's narrative. If you could explain.
I took the Chipko movement as to define feminism not only to concentrate on women movement, but consider the movement as a movement led by women and not a women's movement, which is also present in Mahashweta Devi's stories, like where the women acts as a resistance. The Chipko movement is often viewed as in eco-feminist lens, that it is only specified to a women's movement, but it is a social movement.
I must say, all the five, presentations are wonderful. Gives a variety of presentations, though the focus was more on Rajanna's article and maybe Devupama's and Shruti maybe. The two others who were left out, there could have been, if we had time, we could have discussed more. On Partho Sharuti, for example, I mean, he said more about politics on Rama, but no politics on Shiva. But I think Shiva is also politicalized. Otherwise, how do we get Shoivas and the Vaishnava circuit? That is politicalized. So that particular area could have been mentioned. Shiva is not above politics. And then Kajol, of course, she was brilliant also in trying to find out that, and that's what we have heard, that, the change in using communication, we have been studying that, that from the dominant communication methods to, say, the participatory method in development. Here, even if it is participatory, that doesn't give women empowerment, because she needs to have power. That really comes from more micro knowledges, which has been possible. In fact, all the five articles here or presentations have delved into, deeper into the micro knowledge areas, not the general presentations. So thank you, everybody. So I think we go on to the next session.
All right, so we will move on to our plenary session 3, which will be chaired by Professor Dr. Shombit Mullik, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Our esteemed speakers are Professor Dr. Shomojit Patro, Department of Sociology, Siddho Kano Birsha University. Sir will be speaking on the topic Bytes and a New Grammar of Everyday Life. And our second speaker is Professor Dr. Ritu Sen Chaudhary, Head Department of Sociology, West Bengal State University. Ma'am will be speaking on the topic feminism and the questions concerning environment, and she will be joining us online. I would request Shombit sir to kindly felicitate Dr. Shomojit Patro. Kindly come up to the stage.
Hello. হ্যালো হ্যালো চিক হ্যালো হ্যালো চিক ঠিক আছে
Good afternoon, ma'am. Hope you can hear
Yeah,
us.
good afternoon. Yeah, yes. I can hear you.
Ma'am, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, ma'am. So I would now like to open the forum for the discussion. Shombit sir, kindly take over. Thank you.
Rainy as well as a little warm afternoon. Inclement weather, but I loved the rainfall. Last evening. Here we are going to have two presentations. Two panelists are with us, very distinguished scholars in their respective areas. One, first, Professor Ritu Sen Chaudhary. She is heading the Department of Sociology, West Bengal State University. She was supposed to be here. It's unfortunate that she couldn't make it because she's not keeping well. We all wish her a speedy recovery. She is going to speak on feminism and the questions concerning environment. And then Professor Soumyajit Patra. He is now heading the Department of Sociology at Siddhokanto Birsa University. He is going to speak on bites and a new grammar of everyday life. Let's keep it like 20 minutes each, and then 20 minutes for questions and answers, reflections, disagreements, discussion, and so on. Over to you, Professor Ritu Sen Chaudhary. Am I audible, Professor Sen Chaudhary?
Yes, you are audible. Many thanks to your
Yeah.
There's been an echo.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, there is no. Bit disturbing.
Sorry?
The voice is being echoed. My voice is being echoed. Can you do something about it? It's a double.
Just a second.
Okay.
Now is it all right? Hello? Sir, I ଟିକେ ପରେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କଲ୍ କରୁଛି. Professor Sen Chaudhary, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You can now start. Please start.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for a while, I'm keeping my I'm just keeping my video off because I suppose there is an issue of link, I think. So yeah. Many thanks for inviting me here. I'm thankful to the Department of Sociology, Sister Nivedita University. This is a very grand seminar, I suppose, and I wish I could be there, but I'm not keeping well. So today I would be, as you know, that I would be talking about certain concerns of feminist concerns on environment. So basically, yeah, my co-speaker is my friend, dear friend Shomoji, and it's been a pleasure to be with you, sharing the stage. Yes. I'll now straight away go into the topic of my discussion. So I thought that I would be talking on feminism, and I would be sharing the concerns of environmental, ecological concerns of feminism, and it is important to, lot has been already talked about that, but then it is important to harp on it or reflect on it again and again, because things are changing in the discursive plane. Things are changing, and more than nowadays, more than it is a question concerning environment, it is also a critique of humanism as such. It is a sort of an anti-humanist, anti-anthropocentric turn that I would be talking about today. So this is basically a conceptual paper on the, what should I say, on the concerns of feminism from a theoretical, conceptual point of view. So by the mid-70s, feminist writers had raised the issue of whether patriarchal modes of thinking encourage not only widespread inferiorizing and colonizing of women, but also people of color, animals, and nature. So male-dominated culture or patriarchy is supported by one can say that it is supported by four interlocking pillars: sexism, racism, class exploitation, and ecological destruction. These pillars are constructed over the bedrock of rationality. The rational man, who is the torchbearer of the enlightened West, rules over woman, colonizes his racial other, harnesses the nature, and masters the animal. His increasing control over nature and colonization of the non-West through technological and military strength contours the path of human progress. And this is how we actually define human progress. So development turns nature into a passive background over which his aggressive achievements are foregrounded. And he is doomed to the most irrational of futures, right? So the world dominated by man is doomed to the most irrational of futures, the destruction of the planet. So, emphasizing the importance of feminism to the environmental movement and various other liberation movements, some writers argue that the domination of women by men is historically the original form of domination in society, from which all other hierarchies of rank, class, political power flow. For instance, human exploitation of nature may be seen as a manifestation and extension of the oppression of women, in that it is the result of associating nature with female, which had been already inferiorized and oppressed by the male-dominating culture. But within the plurality of feminist positions, other writers such as Val Plumwood understand the oppression of women as only one of the many parallel forms of oppression shared and supported by common ideological structure in which one party, the colonizer, whether male, white, or human uses a number of conceptual and rhetorical devices to privilege its interest over that of other party, the colonized, whether female, people of color, of animals, facilitated by a common structure. Seemingly diverse forms of oppression can mutually reinforce each other. So these the core features of this of the structure of the dominant structure which we had been talking about, which the feminists had been problematizing. The core feature of the structure includes dichotomies or hierarchical or binary mode of thought, and that is there lies, I mean, that is the logic of domination, which are typically androcentric. So binaries, as we know, are dominant tendencies of conceptualizing the world in terms of two, with no apparent scope of deviation, essentially marked as positive and negative. So one side of the binary is marked as positive, while the other side is marked as negative. So one is powerful and the other side is powerless. So each moment of language tends to derive meaning through historically organized opposition, and so it is known that that language is not a neutral permutation of symbols, right? So language is a force field of ideological reproduction, where the symbols signify the elements of the inequitable gendered social order. So there is a primacy of the man-woman distinction in the very act of knowing through binaries. Dichotomies conveying rich cues of discrimination are grounded on the literal distinction between male subject and female object. The act of knowing and being human is essentially rational. Man, as he is rational, acquires the authority to know and becomes the knowing subject, and this makes him the normative man who represents the humankind. A rational human is identified in terms of his irrational other. So while the man is rational, woman is irrational, nature is irrational, and woman, nature, they are instinctual. And here we can see that that nature and woman are drawn closely to each other. And so the woman-man distinction is similar to a number of other oppositions. As you know, culture, nature, private, public, reason, emotion, enigma, madness, truth, lie, science, humanity, matured, immature, adult, infant, enlightened, ignorant, mind, body, aggressive, docile. So this can go on. We can civilized, primitive, human, animal, and so on. So most often the first of each pair, as I've already said, is considered to be superior, and woman, who symbolizes the other side of the binary, that unlike the original, authentic, and superior, is always secondary, derivative, and even parasitic. So woman is considered instinctual, and she makes an integral part of the nature. Like the nature herself, woman is practically unpredictable. So there is, we all know that there is a problem with this dualistic mode of thinking. However, it is not just that the dominating party often falsely sees the dominated party as lacking or possessing the allegedly superior or inferior qualities, or that the dominated party often internalizes false stereotypes of itself given by its oppressors, or that stereotypical thinking often overlooks salient and important differences among individuals. And more important, according to feminist analysis, the very premise of prescriptive dualism, the valuing of attributes of one polarized side and devaluing of of the other, the idea that domination and oppression can be justified by appealing to attributes like masculinity, rationality, being civilized or developed, etc. This itself is very, very problematic, and this has direct link, connection with the whole question of ecological and environmental degradations. So feminism represents a radical challenge for environmental thinking, politics, and traditional social ethical perspectives. It promises to link environmental questions with wider social problems concerning various kinds of discrimination and exploitation. So ecofeminism, which emerged as a nearly inevitable consequence of the synapse between feminism and ecological movements of 80s, 70s and 80s, is founded on the premise that forms of oppressions are connected. So several forms of oppressions that we are talking about: oppression of women, oppression of the environment, of the plants and the animals, and the colonized and the racial other. All these oppressions are connected. That's what they want to emphasize. So it attempts to establish a connection between environmental degradation and the oppression of women. For ecofeminists like Maria Mais and Vandana Shiva, this connection stems from a common root of domination, the patriarchal capitalist power structure. This structure combines the patriarchal understanding and organization of the world into binaries that we have already pointed at. Now, feminine intervention, ecofeminists assert, is a prerequisite to salvage the earth. So when we see that all forms of discriminations, all forms of oppressions are connected, and when we see that in certain ways a woman is the exemplar of such oppression, feminists assert that feminine intervention is a prerequisite to salvage the earth. Now, Plumwood questions such gynocentric essentialism, and this in certain senses supports dualism or repudiation of woman from the realm of culture, reducing them to the bare nature. So if there is only woman who is there to take action against the whole question of environmental degradation and in certain ways, this in turn will validate, the binary between man and woman. So that's what Plumwood reflects at. And she points at and she calls for an anti-dualistic position between where both man and woman can stand for and save the nature. So it's not the sole onus is not on women. That's what she wants to reflect. Now, I just quote two lines from her very famous article, essay. She writes that men and women, they will come from different historical places and have different things to contribute to the process of environmental concerns and to the process of thinking about a solution to this problem. So, because of their placement, she writes, because of their placement in the sphere of nature and exclusion from the oppositional culture, what women have to contribute to this process may be especially significant. So, there is a slight shift, right, in Plumwood's position, where we would see that Plumwood begins saying that she is for an anti-dualistic position where both man and woman can stand for and save nature, but then she realizes that there is a very specific, especially significant position for women in this whole business. Now, women, especially poor women, are the ones who bear the greatest burden of the impacts of of environmental degradation. This includes not only women from developing countries, but also black women, indigenous women, trans women, all of whom experience different forms of discrimination that translate to greater levels of poverty. Climate change is having and will continue to have serious repercussions on agriculture and food security. This primarily affects populations from developing countries, particularly women, who depend more on agriculture for sustenance. For one, women are those, for once and for all, women are those primarily responsible for providing water and food for their families. In places where the effects of climate change are deeply felt, women must travel greater distances, and they are exposed to higher risks of health and violence. Now, not only deforestation and climate changes, so there are other concerns of other ecological concerns like genetic engineering, artificial reproductive technologies, and various other things concerned with ecology and life forms affect women adversely. Now, is this why feminism should care and fight against environment? I pose a question here. And the answer is both yes and no. Yes, because feminism must address the problems faced by women. At the in the very first principle, we know that feminism ought relate to something which is related to the direct, everyday oppression of women. But this is not the sole cause, that why feminism should take care about and fight against environment. No, because the everyday problems faced by women cannot be resolved unless certain deeper concerns are addressed by feminism. And what are the deeper concerns? At the very outset, you must remember that I was talking about something called something like anthropocentrism. So I would now talk a little on anthropocentrism and why anthropocentrism is so significant in the discourse of feminism, and why feminism is not humanism, and why feminism can never be humanism, a mere humanism. Now, this is there was a very significant article written by Rosie Bredetti, fourth thesis on post-human feminism, where she writes that feminism is not a humanism. The argument might seem obscure, right, when considering feminism's claim for equality. So while feminism claims for equality between differently gendered, racialized, and classed people, so equality is a claim for us. We claim, as feminists, we claim for equality. So equality, the whole notion of equality is based on the notions of humanism. Now, if we come to question the concept of humanism, it becomes very difficult. Now, let's see how it works. So the argument might seem obscure, as I've already said, that how can we at all question the notions of humanity when we are actually claiming for equality? We want to be equal human beings. Now, Bredetti contends that ties between liberal and socialist feminism and enlightenment-based humanism do appear, although she simultaneously highlights the problematized history and complexity of the category of humanity, especially in terms of women. So there are certain problems in humanity, and what is that? The political case for women's and other minorities' emancipation has been argued along the lines of a notion of equality that assumes an unproblematic belonging to the same category of humanity. So this position tended to view the natural order as servitude, violence and brutality, nature as the naturalization of inequalities. This belonging to a common idea of human that we are, actually problematizing here, has long been critiqued within feminism. Notably during the last 3 decades, right? There has been a kind of rejection of Eurocentrism, of humanism, making feminist anti-humanist or indeed post-humanist. Now, so what are these terms all about? I will talk a little on them. Now, so indeed, according to many, this common idea of many feminists, this common idea of human often excludes beings that fall, the idea of human excludes beings that fall outside the white, masculine, wealthy, healthy, heterosexual norms. Many fields which are indebted in some way to feminist perspectives, such as disability studies, animal studies, queer studies, post-structuralist theory, critical race studies, and environmental activism, to name a few, have all questioned the andro-anthropocentrism of humanism. So on the one hand, it is the whole discourse is androcentric, and at the same time, it is also anthropocentric. So it is not only man, but also human. The whole notion of human. It could be argued that that there has been a sort of post-humanist turn in these fields. Now, let me now refer to 2 very common misconceptions about the continuities of feminism and environmental concerns that I have been talking about. So, what are the continuities between? I've already talked a little on that. So, what exactly are the continuities between feminism and environmental concerns? But there are certain there are certain misconceptions regarding this. So I'll refer only 2 sorts of misconceptions here. First, the feminists shared the concerns for nature and for a mutual thriving of all non-human lives, human, non-human lives. This sharing is not based on the woman's allegedly innate link with nature. So I repeat, this sharing of environmental concern is not based on woman's allegedly innate link with nature. In this framework, woman and nature are culturally coded as inferior. Nature is often personified with feminine levels, like we all know Mother Earth. With the destruction of the environment, it is described with violent languages such as rape of the sea, rape of the earth, right? বাংলায় বলা হয় বীরভোগ্যা বসুন্ধরা. So there is always a sort of link, in our language, in the dominant structures. There is always a sort of link between the woman nature continuum. But then, if looking closer to it, you will see that this, in certain ways, this reinstates the culture-nature binary. When you say that there is a continuity between woman and nature, you actually reinstate the culture-nature binary, which in certain senses, in all senses, justify the principle of masculine domination, both over nature and woman. Reducing her to the bare nature, this in a way repudiates the woman from the realm of culture. So woman has nothing to do. She has a very sort of natural role, and there is as if the culture is not for her. a group of ecofeminists subvert the oppressive logic of woman's innate link with nature through a political charge. Second, there is yet another misconception that feminism do not, am very particular about this, and I would say that feminism do not share the concerns of environment on the grounds of shared victimhood. It is not the case that women who are, who are oppressed by the dominant structure and women who share the victimhood, sort of victimhood with other, with the colonial or racial other of woman, of the man. It's not like that. Now, it's not that the way man harnesses the nature, masters the animal, and deploys the machine, violently placing everything at his disposal. It is not because of that, feminists need to share their concerns with environment. Feminists, or not merely that. Feminists emphasize that combating aggression is a compulsory task, but that does not circumscribe the whole scope of feminism. They remember that the agent-victim binary runs the risk of marking the woman as a victimized other of man, deriving the whole purpose of feminism in such terms. Now, we all know that if these words are new for us, let me just mention that androcentrism is something which is related to the dominance of man, centricity of man. Anthropocentrism is the belief that human beings are the central or the most important entity in the world, holding intrinsic value, while other things like animals, plants, ecosystems, the value of all these are, in certain senses, are only for their instrumental use for humans. This often prioritizes human interest, leading to arguments that natural resources should serve human needs and can sometimes, and this can sometimes be the root cause of sort of ecological crisis. Now, so androcentrism do I have a little bit 5 more minutes to go? So androcentrism and anthropocentrism goes hand in hand. Anthropocentrism, androcentrism goes in certain senses, androcentrism presupposes humanocentrism or anthropocentrism. Without an understanding of this is my whole point. Now, without an understanding of this unity of this connection, link between androcentrism and anthropocentrism, feminism would not be able to solve the problem that they are grappling with. So, without an understanding of this, woman would remain implicated in the anthropocentric structures. What we need here is a conceptual disruption of the unity of the dominant subject of human. And in certain senses, when the woman is claiming to be equal with man, woman actually turns herself into another man, right? So equal to man, the whole logic is about humanity, and this whole logic is anthropocentric, humanocentric. And if feminists are not critiquing the inherent anthropocentrism in their own discourses, this will become a very difficult task. So, as the universal subject is ruptured, its fluctuating fragments slip into a sort of into threading out effectual continuities between human, animal, plants, objects, and other things. So, ecofeminist critique of androcentric, anthropocentric humanism is heightened by the attempts of the post-human feminists to release knowledge from the overarching discourses of rationality and progress. They do not privilege culture over nature, but focuses on the relationship between two. Beyond the anthropocentric, they tend to think of non-fixed, mutable conditions, treading out effectual continuities between various life forms. In the context of feminism, the post-human and post-humanism explicitly calls into question the anthropocentric biases of humanist thought and human exceptionalism, the optimistic belief in technological progress, hierarchical categories of nature and culture, the other and the self, the human and the non-human, and the ethics of current human-non-human relation. In other words, feminist posthumanism can be described as a renegotiating of the human in a manner that questions humanist hierarchical conceptualizations of human existence, ethics, etc. So, I will just end saying a little from, reflecting a little from Donna Haraway, who theorizes the ethicality of the complex implications of human-non-human continuity. She brings in cyborg, oncomounts, companion species, and other hybrid figures, leading through a movement from an organic industrial societies to a polymorphous information system. She sees the cyborg or a biotechnological combine as a feminist metaphor. And the cyborg invites the human to a moment of becoming everything other than human. So, so the point here is that in the face of the sort of environmental degradations that is rampant around us, we have to think in terms of certain deeper or certain deeper concerns about the whole notion of the anthropocentric nature of this whole idea of human development and progress. And it is imperative for the feminists to problematize humanism as such and take a turn, a post-human turn, when they would be able to sort of think of generating some sort of effectual link between human, non-human, and all sorts of plants, animals, and the ecosystem as such. So I think I'll stop here, and we can discuss about certain other things in the discussion session. So I had kept my video off because the noise was breaking. Now that I'm done with my presentation, I can for a while make myself visible.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Sen Chaudhary. We'll have comments after Professor Patra's presentation. Now
Sure,
I request Professor Soumyajit Patra to make his presentation. Professor.
Good afternoon, my dear Chairperson, Professor Sambit Malik, and I'm fortunate enough that President of Indian Sociological Society, Ma'am Professor Chaudhary is here. I'll refer to her in my lecture. She delivered a brilliant lecture as President of Indian Sociological Society at its All India Sociological Conference. I'll refer to her. And my dear friend Ritu, I'm grateful really to Seema, Priyanka and others for inviting me. I'd start my lecture with some observations, then I'll go into deeper analysis and sociological dimensions, how digital technologies are radically changing the grammar of our everyday life. When I was coming to this place, I was just searching my WhatsApp messages, and I found today I received 11 good morning messages from different friends, some of whom I know, some of whom are intimate, and some of whom of them I do not know. I also do not consider them as my friends at all, but I received 11 messages. What does it imply? First of all, I found that all these messages were sent by my male friends. Later, I had gone through some literatures on these good morning messages. Studies have been conducted. And the pattern is same all over the world. And one thing, the students, I'm sure that you don't send good morning messages because younger people, younger boys and girls do not send messages. It is the feature of the older people. Why? What does it imply? First of all, you will be surprised that these good morning messages are a feature of Indian society. In other parts of the world, people seldom send good morning messages. And you will be on 20th January 2018, Wall Street Journal published one big report on these Indian phenomenon. And WhatsApp company and their headache is Indian domain. Every day morning they struggle to manage this flooding of good morning messages. It is Indian phenomenon. Why? I'll raise the question, I don't know the answer. I'll raise the question, is there any relation between sending good morning messages by old people, male, every day to some others? Are these old people link the technology and tradition? I'm not sure. Why old people send messages? I understand why women hesitate to send good morning messages. I understand. Indian realities are there. Another interesting phenomenon, Indian phenomenon, is all these messages are sent with a flower, floral. Why? Is there any cultural realities between in these floral graphics? Even today I received 11 messages and all these messages are floral. Actually, flower symbolizes freshness of relationships. Flower symbolizes softness of relationships. And most important, Indian culture, worship relationships, I say. So flower symbolizes sacredness. And it is also an Indian phenomenon. I'll go try to explore some other aspects also. It is another phenomenon that every good morning graphics has a quote. In other parts of the world, I had gone through the literature, they send text messages. Seldom they send, and they send text messages. Even Google had studied this phenomenon, that why people from India, there are specific 2-3 domains from which they download these graphics with a code. Does it symbolize the strong value systems? Because every code reflects a value. So the entire episode is cultural. You will be surprised that the name of the journal is Biological Rhythm Research, Taylor and Francis Journal. They published one article on it. Rakesh Swain and Atanu Poti, you can search it. They found another important aspect of these good morning messages is that in every minute or minor causes, the Indians, they form one WhatsApp group. This is also an Indian reality. And you will be surprised, it is also an Indian reality that many group admins, they post that don't send good morning messages in these official groups. It is also an Indian reality. In no parts of the world, such kind of things are found. Why? I will tell you another thing. I received 11 messages today, and 2 of my friends have sent same graphic, same message, same sticker twice. Why? The only thing that the first message did not give any meaning of good morning. Usually when I greet personally, I don't say good morning twice because the first good morning utterance give me enough meanings that I greet Professor Chaudhary, good morning ma'am, once final. But when I'm sending stickers, that friend is considering my Somajit Patra as a point in his wider networks. Maybe he has sent 50 friends, 60 friends indiscriminately without attaching any deeper meanings of good morning. So I received from two friends, 2 good morning messages, same good morning messages. Now, as a student of sociology, what do I mean by digitalization? Before that, I will refer to one very interesting book, that when people send good morning messages, this good morning message doesn't contain any real emotion. Umberto Eco has written one very interesting book, Travels in Hyperreality. And he compared these kind of things, he termed it as total fake. This kind of sending messages is, according to Eco, is total fake. And he says, Eco, that sometimes it looks more real than the real itself. Like, the metaphor is fantastic, like the wax museum. When we entered, Umberto Eco traveled a lot in USA and found many wax museums, and he defined this wax museum as it looks like more real than real. It just like the good morning messages. Don't be very happy when you get a good morning message from your friend. It can be total fake. Now I am going to another part. What do we mean by digitalization? I mean by digitalization not the algorithms, 010101. I mean how these kind of technologies are coming into my private space. When I travel, I have to travel to go to Purulia. When I travel, every day I find that my co-passengers are with a small machine in their hands. And they are within the network. Someone is just calling Facebook messages, others are talking to their family members over videos when they are traveling, and no one is talking to the co-passengers. That means they are within the network. And at the same time, they are very alone. Right? So, Rain Lilly has defined this feature as networked individualism. It is network. We are within the networks, but we are alone. The face-to-face interactions on which McIver and Page wrote a lot has been replaced with face-to-screen interaction. Every interaction is mediated interaction now. I'll go into this part later, but right now I'll give you a data, and it is very recent data, last month's data. It was given by TRI, Government of India, and at present there are, last month data, September, 100 crores, 28 lakhs, 50,000 internet users in our country. It is Government of India data. 100 crores, 100 কোটি 28 লক্ষ 50 হাজার, 100 crores, 28 lakhs, 50,000, exact 50,000. It is the data given by TRI. And you will be surprised that 50% of this internet was provided by Geo. When I am talking about digitalization, I cannot ignore the role of, as a student of sociology, I understand students of sociology sometimes they hesitate to tell the name of a brand, but I will. Geo has revolutionized our digital system. Initially, they had their business motive. I am not interested in that. But 50%, and during the initial stage, they gave free, internet services, and this has, within a very short span of time, has radically changed our habits, practices, and internet is now operating our private spaces, personal spaces. How? I'll go into some detail, but before that, Nicolas Negroponte has written one very beautiful book, classical work, I would say, Being Digital. And in the mid of that book, he has made one interesting comment. That is, the entire discourse, scientific discourse, has been changed. Today, we don't talk about atoms. Rather, we talk about bytes and bits. This transformation from atoms to bits and bytes has changed the entire algorithms of our social life. I will not say communication itself, because communication has wider implications. It has changed the entire grammar of our everyday life. So the bits and bytes has become the buzzwords. Today we are habituated in saying GB, TB, and MB. We don't write letters. Negroponte says, letters contains atoms. The paper contains atoms. Today we send messages. That is KB or MB. It is the play of algorithms 0 and 1. Interestingly, the culture of writing, changed the ancient world. The invention of scripts and culture of writing. Similarly, you must have read the book of McLuhan. He talked about typographical man. That means McLuhan told us that the invention of printing press has reshaped modernity, right? Similarly, the bytes and bits are changing. Today we don't talk about typographical man. The book was fantastic. The name of the book was The Gutenberg Galaxy. You can read. And here McLuhan talked, it was written in 1962, if I'm not wrong. And he talked about how printing press reshaped modernity, reproduced modernity. Now I'll talk a few things about this reality. Look, my dear students, the bytes and bits has changed the entire framework of our life. Today, computer doesn't mean computation kind of things. Computer doesn't compute today. Its operating system, computer's operating system, has given rise to another new social operating system. Right? This new social operating system is rather radically altering our class differences. Just a few minutes ago, I was talking with Maitri ma'am that my son knows better than me the tidbits of computer. So the differences is generational now. The young people are teachers, computer teachers. So things are just radically changing. The class differences are redefined in new terms. Our ways of expressing things are taking new languages. Ritu was talking about language. Yes, language reflects ideology. Riju, fine. Thank you for reminding me this point. The language reflects ideology. So my question, is this language? Because today we are habituated with emojis. What is this emoji? Emotion is very, very personal, very, very subjective, very, very customized. My emotion is my emotion. But what WhatsApp does, WhatsApp has just translated our common emotions. They are doing some common emojis. If you say, I have reached the home, I will give you a thumbs up. If you say, I have stood first in the class, I will also send a thumbs up. So are these ironing out the differences? Are they labeling? This is called platform capitalism. This is very powerful. It goes beyond the level of economy. Platform capitalism is changing the whole rhythm of life. আমার মা একবার বললেন যে আমি তোকে এমন একটা দুঃখের কথা জানালাম, তুই আমার একটা কান্নার ছবি পাঠালি। আমি মাকে বললাম সরি। সো ওই কান্নার ছবি তুমিও পাঠিয়েছো, আমিও পাঠিয়েছি, সবাই পাঠাচ্ছে। সুতরাং কান্না is being redefined. Smile is also being redefined. These are two poles, kanna and hashi. So the entire grammar of our everyday life is being changed. Laka talked about the differences between real and realities. What is reality, students, for you? Realities are, social and material spaces that is visible, tangible. So this is reality. We are sitting here. Professor Sambit is here, ma'am is here, you are here. This is reality. But real, it is invisible. So the differences between real and realities, when we live in communities, real and realities, they go together, they converge. But in virtual worlds, real and realities are going away from each other. And in our social life, we are struggling to manage how these two parallel systems, one is our real everyday life, our reality, another one is virtual reality. So we are struggling to maintain these two parallels. And these differences between real and realities, sometimes Eco has said, sometimes the unreal seems real. And these gap between realities and real are widening. And in this gap, one machine has entered. It is our smartphone. Professor Chaudhuri, in her brilliant Indian Sociological Association President's lecture last year, talked about our fragmentation of selves. I would argue that smartphone has become a part of our self, extended self. Today I can live with my son. Today I can live with my mother, friends, but I cannot live even a minute without my phone. It is also reorganizing I do not know, Mead jodi I Mead Shonga likhten, that the self is made up of I and me, and where this smartphone would take its place in Mead's schema of I and me, self. Nature, I'll take 2 minutes more. Huh? Please. Nature group, one of the world's best publishing house. They publish one, you can follow this journal, Nature Behavior. What is the name? I just forgot. Nature Behavior. Nature Group's journal. So they published one fantastic article on this issue, that today human society is not made up of humans alone. Without machine, I'm talking through a machine. You are listening to me through a machine. So without these machines are here, all pervasive. Without machines, human society is an utopia. So Nature has published one article, and they have said the time has come to redefine sociology itself and to talk about a new sociology of human and machine. Social system today cannot be defined in Parsonian terms. Machine has entered into the social system domain space. And the thing is, it is challenging our existence. Just yesterday evening, thanks to Sambit, he told that robot is replacing our motor functions. Fantastic. And artificial intelligence is replacing our cognitive functions. Today I have come here getting a message from Seema through WhatsApp, and I have prepared all my lectures with the help of artificial intelligence. But I also have used my natural intelligence. Right? Yes, I have taken the help of artificial intelligence to prepare this lecture. But at the same time, I also have used my natural. So the challenge before us is how to tackle these problems. The challenges posed by natural intelligence and the possibilities of artificial intelligence. Where are the points of convergence? Where are the points of divergences? So the new sociology should take all these into account and rewrite a new grammar of sociology in which we will not say that human society is network of relationships. It is a different kind of relationships. So with all these, I must say that it is really was an opportunity to share some of these ideas with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must thank Professor Ritu Sen Chaudhary and Professor Sumijit Patra to reflect on first one. Perhaps if I say that the relationship between nature and human beings in Professor Sen Chaudhary's lecture, and then Professor Patra's lecture indicated the relationship between human beings and machines. Okay. I always say that I cannot carry out a work on nature as a scientist or a technologist or a philosopher, but my reflection on sociological dimension of nature, I think, always starts with the Industrial Revolution. I mean, when nature was posited as an object of study. Earlier, nature was considered subject, and then nature was considered an object of study. And that's how we made a transition from faculty of contemplation to faculty of control. And this transition, that's how in the 19th century, when we tried to make sense of the relationship between nature and human beings. And obviously that relationship is not one way. It said there is a dialectical relationship between nature and human beings. And machines, I mean, any technological artifact, because technology is not a neutral activity, right? Technology also is not autonomous. It is very much economically, politically, militarily, socially constructed, no doubt about it. Now, may I request the audience, especially the young scholars, to pose questions. Thank you. Yeah, please. Please don't ask questions. Please don't ask me questions.
No, definitely, sir. So, sir, we are very much lucky that we have got your presentation and ma'am's presentation as well, and we have learned a lot of things. But in my immature mind, I have a question to you, sir, that when we are just dealing with the mobile and the artificial intelligence, then how to deal with the concept and how to live for the time, because we can't live without our mobile, as you have already mentioned, sir. So if we can't live without mobile, then a new society can be formed, which is not only the society, but techno society can be named. So what is your kind observation on this, and how to means just reduce the problems out of this situation? So it's my question, sir.
Thank you. Very good question. Actually, we have entered into a society which is sometimes called next society, right? A new form of society, next society. So, this next society is creating new markers and new ways of doing things. Firstly, we have to, and in this entire discourse, one word I have not used. That is the most important word. And often sociologists do not use this word frequently. That is life. Life is very important, right? So everything, whether it is technology, or it is nature, or it is artifacts, it is for life. So you are using your mobile for your life, right? One thing, the name of the sociologist is Marka McDonough. She has developed one interesting concept. It is called ambient co-presence. Ambient co-presence means when you are using a mobile, you are within a network and everyone is watching you. That is a very, very important feature of this, I told you, new social operating system, that we are always under surveillance. Everyone is watching you. Whether they are following my status, they are watching whether I am online on WhatsApp in the midnight. Everything, every activity of you is being watched by someone. So when you are using mobile, when you are using any machine, be aware of your life. That is very important, right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Is there any other question or reflection or disagreement? Yeah. Professor Datta.
It's like an observation on my part. When my father visits Delhi, there are my relatives there. So in the morning, every day my brother's wife comes and greets him by touching his feet. So Professor Patra was saying that, the woman only shares mostly the good morning message, like with a flower and so. So is it the digitalization of traditional norms that is taking place? So just my observation of what you said.
Because I told you that the old people, they send, this is the data, no? They send message. I can ask the young students whether they send message, but I send message. I am 56 now. So the old people, they send messages. So my question is, I do not know the answer. Because only 2-3 research papers have been published in this good morning messages. And one important thing, people are inclined to send good morning messages, but the number of good night messages is very less. That is also a study. So I think that maybe the old people, they are the converging point of tradition and new technology. So this may be one reason. They know they rather worship the traditional relationship patterns, and they have, to some extent, this technology in their hands. So this is a disembedded kind of, social society we are getting. So my friends are in Delhi. So the old people, the young people, I think that to enter relationship, the fabric of relationship is changing. I do not know whether the same thinking about relationships are existing in the minds of the young people. I am not sure. আমি যেটা যতটা আমার বন্ধুকে ভালোবাসি, আমার ছেলেও ঠিক একই কোয়ালিটেটিভ অ্যাঙ্গেলে আমার তার বন্ধুকে ভালোবাসবে, আই এম নট শিওর। দে আর বিকামিং মোর individualization is taking place. They are more eager to put a boundary, and at the same time they want to be in the network. That is networked individualism. They put a boundary, that is individualization, and this kind of networked individualism is opening new horizons of solving problems. That is very true. Because if I want something, I can WhatsApp somebody, please send one thing from Guwahati, and I can get it. But at the end of the day, I am alone. I am talking to somebody through screen. So face-to-face interaction is, another important observation of mine, that earlier telephone was a network of families, because we had one land phone. It created a network of families. Now mobile phone is creating network of individuals. This is one interesting finding, is it? So when we had land phones, and another kind of networks was created. That network was family-based network. I had to call someone, please call my friend, give me this friend. So this was family points was created. Now, every individual has one mobile. So individual-centric network is emerging out. So this has implications over social systems. Our new institutions, it has implications on economy, it has implications on family relationships, other institutions, kin groups must have. So this is my observation. Thank you.
I'm very fascinated with the paper, your paper, I must say.
I have not written any paper.
Or maybe your observations. And I think we all go through these observations every day, but you have come up with, saying this. So, let me congratulate you. But I have always wondered, with all these kind of, networking, mobiles, WhatsApp groups, and all of this, but at the end of the day, we become very, very lonely, isn't it? With all these kind of networks and these and that. But at the end of the day, we become, very lonely. I think that's a very sad part of the thing. Sad, or, that's the reality, isn't it? So I think, we sociologists, or we, maybe social scientists, should also delve deep in this fact of this. With all this, is there a sense of losing out of not meeting someone in person, we are grappling with this, with this whole phenomenon of loneliness, isn't it?
Very
Thank you.
good. That is the thing I wanted to say. But at this point, I will make another comment. That is, today we all have a number of friends. Through Facebook, through WhatsApp, the number of friends has been increased. But I have observed that in Indian culture, there is a dialectic. We talk about friends, বন্ধু বলে আমরা খুব ভালোবাসি, বন্ধু বন্ধু বন্ধু। বাট একটু ভেবে দেখবে, বন্ধুর মতো মারাত্মক জিনিস নেই। তুমি যেই তোমার বাড়িতে মাকে বাবাকে বলবে যে হি ইজ মাই বেস্ট ফ্রেন্ড, মা বাবা প্রথম কথা বলবে ওই তোর মাথাটা খাচ্ছে। And society doesn't want a good friend of mine. Society wants a friend who is not a friend. তুমি মাসে একবার বন্ধুকে ফোন করো, মা বাবা খুব খুশি। That is not friendship. But যেই তোমার খুব বন্ধু হবে, দিনে 4 বার করে ফোন করবে, society will not allow. Family will not allow. So, in real sense, in Indian culture, doesn't allow friendship in truest sense. My wife will not allow my best friend. Always he say that best friend will take time of my wife. This is the general feeling. বন্ধু ততক্ষণ ভালো যতক্ষণ বন্ধু ওপর থাকবে. This is I do not know. It is a contradictions. So we are happy with number of 1000 বন্ধু আছে in Facebook. It is good. মাও বলে ভালো বলে, ওই 1000 বন্ধুর মধ্যে একজন বেস্ট ফ্রেন্ড হতে যাক, দেখো ফ্যামিলিতে কি হয়। So Indian culture is full of contradictions. I think so. Ma'am, please.
No, I said I enjoyed listening to you. এই বন্ধুর ব্যাপারে আমার মনে হয়েছে, when we were small, and I'm obviously very aged now, আমার great grandfather, তো মাঝে মাঝে আসতেন উনি আমাদের বাড়িতে। তো ওনার he basically, my parents, যারা if they were alive would be nearing 100, would say দাদামাসি would hate বন্ধু, because বন্ধু was but this is contextual. কেন ওদের বক্তব্য ছিল your first priority or commitment is to the পরিবার, kinship and family. যে আমাকে নিয়ে বেরো, ঠাকুমার সঙ্গে বসো, কাকার বাড়িতে যাও। What is this বন্ধু? The বন্ধু was an alien modern entity. হ্যাঁ, এটা একটা অন্য রকমের ব্যাপার। Earlier women had no friends, the men had friends. Women এর এক সখী ছিল। So even in the উপন্যাস, বাংলা ফিকশনে, because Bengal in a certain sense entered modernity earlier, ওই বন্ধুত্বর কনসেপ্টটা emerge করে। আগে ঠিক ওই রকম ছোটবেলার লোকেদের সঙ্গে, ছোটবেলায় even in the earlier generation people played with cousins, মানে পরিবারের মধ্যেই এক বয়সের, so it's I think interesting ওই যে ব্যাপারটা about friends, being a different kind of phenomenon. Of course ফেসবুকের ব্যাপারটা আলাদা জিনিস, একদম আলাদা। And you were talking about, but I like the point about what you said about men of a certain generation, doing the good morning. And I think that has to be explored further. Because mornings for women are very busy times. We good morning পাঠাবার সময় একদম নেই, And second, the idea, like you said correctly, men can send off message anytime, anywhere, doesn't matter. Now, even if I at my age start sending messages at odd times, it would look at me, what are they doing, if you follow. So the social continues and allows some people to send messages and some others not, so but to a lot of possibilities. Ebar paper likhe phelo. Thank you, ma'am. And send it to police. Yeah, they will not publish.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. Yeah, to Professor Sen Chaudhary and Professor Patro, I just have, it's just an observation, right? So when we are talking about nature, and then thank you very much, Professor Patro, for talking about AI, and then you also spoke about new sociology, how we need to reconceptualize sociology itself. So I'm very intrigued about that, and especially in a time when human beings are going to the moon and getting helium from there, from the moon's earth, right? From the ground of the moon. And that is producing new computers and helping in AI technology and all of that. And as you're talking about the interrelationship between, humans and machines, there are so many things to discuss, but I would like to ask a very fundamental question then for myself, which is, as a social science researcher, student, how should we imagine our roles? How can we intervene in these ethical questions of how do we interact with nature, and how can we encourage ourselves and our students and scholars and our peers in terms of thinking interdependently. What Rodurda also mentioned, we are becoming more lonely. So actually we are very connected in terms of our genetic composition also. So both the human and the non-human species, we are all very, very interconnected. But socially we are becoming more and more disconnected. So how can we, through our interpretations of sociology and understanding of sociology and learning about sociology, think in a more interdependent manner? And what kind of new research questions can we raise? Are there any new methodologies we should be thinking about? Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
This is a very good question, that how we would conceptualize our methodological positions, ethical positions in lieu of all these changes. আমি একটা কথা বলতেই পারি যে আমি এটা দেখলাম, আমার দিদিমার কাছে শুনতাম যে দিদিমার বিয়ের পর রেডিও শুনতে তাকে বারণ করা হতো, তার শাশুড়ি পছন্দ করতেন না যে বউ রেডিও শুনুক। তো ওয়ান্স রেডিও শোনা ওয়াজ আনএথিক্যাল। দেন টেলিভিশন কেম, যখন টেলিভিশন এলো, রেডিও শোনা খুব ভালো, টেলিভিশন যারা দেখে খুব খারাপ। আমার ছেলে যখন ছোট ছিল আমি বলতাম একদম টিভি দেখবি না, এবং আমি আই পুট স্ট্রিক্ট রেস্ট্রিকশনস অন হিজ ওয়াচিং টেলিভিশন। নাও যখন ফোন এলো, এখন সেই ছেলেটা খুব ভালো যে টেলিভিশন দেখে, ফোন দেখে না। আগামী 5 বছরের মধ্যে এইটা হবে, সেই ছেলেটা খুব ভালো যে ফোন দেখে, রোবট নিয়ে খেলে না। So things and ethical issues are changing. It started with Aristotle, who talked about good things and bad things. Neo-Machian ethics, he wrote the book, and he was also searching for what is ethical, what is unethical. In these kind of changes, ethical, unethical প্রশ্নের আগে যেটা আমার কাছে মনে আসে মানুষ হিসেবে, সেটা হচ্ছে কোনটা লিগাল কোনটা ইললিগাল। এই লিগাল ইললিগালের প্রশ্নও কিন্তু খুব গুলিয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে কাকে কোনটা পাঠালে পুলিশ বাড়িতে আসবে না, সবার আগে আমার ছেলেকে সেই ট্রেনিংটা দেওয়ার দরকার, এথিক্যাল আনএথিক্যাল পরে। জাস্ট ইয়েস্টারডে when I was preparing this very lecture, I was thinking that I must have to say something with my son, যে do this over phone, because তারা জানে না। কাকে কি পাঠিয়ে দিল একটা, সেটা একটা বাড়িতে একটা ইলিগাল হয়ে গেল। সো দ্য নোশন অফ লিগালি, যেমন রিয়েল আনরিয়েল ডিফারেন্সেস চলে যাচ্ছে, রিয়েলিটি রিয়েল লাকা বলেছেন চলে যাচ্ছে, সেরকম কোনটা বন্ধু নয় চলে যাচ্ছে, সেরকম কোনটা এথিক্স কোনটা এথিক্যাল এটাও চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, লিগাল ইলিগালও চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, এভরিথিং ইজ বিং রিটেন। সো I think before considering the ethical questions, the legal issues should be taught at the class also. কারণ অনেক সময় আমিও ভুল করি যে এটা করবো কি, এটা করা যেহেতু আমার বয়স হয়েছে, এটা হলে আবার পুলিশ চলে আসবে না তো বাড়িতে, এটা করলে আবার আমার কাছে কোনো একটা সাইবার ক্রাইমের মধ্যে পড়ে যাবো না তো। সাইবার ক্রাইম ইজ এন্টায়ার ডিফারেন্ট ইস্যু। মানিটারি ট্রানজাকশনস, যেটা আমরা বললামই না এতক্ষণে, the entire transactions, monetary transaction has been changed. Mode. এবং কোনটা লিগাল, কোনটা অন্যায় হচ্ছে, কোনটা ভুল হচ্ছে, it is also very important. আসলে the markers of our everyday life is being changed. The standards are being changed. And it will change. We have to... অক্সফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটির একজন প্রফেসর, তার নাম হচ্ছে নিক বোস্ট্রম, ইউ ক্যান ফাইন্ড হিজ লেকচার ইন হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ, ইন ইউটিউব, তিনি বিস্তর কাজ করছেন এই নিয়ে। উনি বলছেন একটা লেকচারে যে আমার পকেটে এই মুহূর্তে যে স্মার্টফোনটা আছে সেটার টেকনোলজি 140 টাইমস বেটার দ্যান দ্য ফার্স্ট টেকনোলজি যেটা চাঁদে রকেট পাঠানো হয়েছিল, তার থেকে 140 টাইমস বেটার অ্যাডভান্স টেকনোলজি আমার স্মার্টফোন। চাঁদে যে এটা নিক বোস্ট্রম, ইউ ক্যান ফাইন্ড ইট ইন। তা যেটা তিনি বলছেন যে এক্সপোনেনশিয়াল, মানে কালকে এখন বাজে 1:40, গতকাল 1:40 পৃথিবী যে জায়গায় ছিল আজ এই জায়গায় নেই। 24 ঘন্টায় কেন? সায়েন্টিস্টরা নতুন কোনো টেকনোলজি আবিষ্কার করে ফেলেছেন, যারা সারাদিন রাত বসে দে আর ডুইং দেয়ার থিংস in laboratory. আমরা বুঝতে পারছি না, আমরা সেটা পরে পাবো, but things have changed. So we have to cope up with this kind of exponential growth of a population explosion is not
আমি একটা
technological issue is more important. Explosion of technology.
এত ইকো হচ্ছে না।
হ্যাঁ বলো ঋতু, বলো।
হ্যাঁ, ক্যামেরাটা অফ করলে তবুও এটা একটু বেটার। Am I audible? শোনা যাচ্ছে? ওকে, তো আমার যেটা মনে ছিল, there is the question of ethics is very important, and এখানে একটা জিনিস যেটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, সেটা হচ্ছে while you think in terms of ethicality, while you are interacting with nature, generally what we are doing is we are doing the whole thing thinking human as the center, right? So it's so very humanocentric, it's so very anthropocentric, where we are not paying attention, or we think of nature as something at the disposal of human being. So this is something that you need to take care of. For example, there are scholars who are working on animal ethics. It's a branch of philosophy examining how humans should treat non-human animals, focusing on their moral status, on their welfare rights, and exploring contentious issues like animal exploitation for clothing, for food, for entertainment, research. So this is something that you need to take care of, while you are talking about the nature, while you are talking about animals, plants. So things are not at the disposal of human beings. So you have to take a different turn looking at things. This is what you call a post-human turn, when you problematize the humanocentric, the anthropocentric nature of our discourses on technology, on ethicality and everything. So this is something that you need to take care of when you are talking about the ethics, এইটা মনে হচ্ছে। And this is an extremely interesting technological glitch. মানে দুটো একসাথে কাজ করছে না। If I'm putting my video on, I can hear my voice loud. So there is an echo.
যেটা আপনি বললেন যে বয়স্ক এজেড মানুষরা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপেই গুড মর্নিং মেসেজ পাঠাচ্ছে, এর ফলে এরা কিন্তু এই এজের মানুষরা বেশিরভাগ ক্রাইমেও কিন্তু পড়ছে। যেমন দেখুন, হুট করে ব্যাংক থেকে টাকা চলে যাচ্ছে, এই মেসেজগুলোতে একটা গ্লিচও থাকছে। তো কি করে এই বয়সের লোকগুলোকে একটা ডিজিটাল লিটারেসি দেওয়া যাবে যে মানে কোনগুলো ঠিক বা কোনগুলো ভুল? কারণ এরাই কিন্তু ফাঁসে পড়ছে, আর এরাই কিন্তু সেই গণ্ডগোলটা এদের থেকেই বেশিরভাগ হচ্ছে।
তুমি স্টার্ট করো, হ্যাঁ, একটা লিটারেসি, একটা ডিজিটাল লিটারেসি ট্রেনিং দেওয়ার, অন্যের ওপর ছেড়ে দাও। গতকালই আমি একটা জায়গায় বলছিলাম যে টাইম হ্যাজ কাম টু টক অ্যাবাউট ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালাইজেশন অফ রেসপন্সিবিলিটিস। অন্য ইনস্টিটিউশনের ওপর দায়িত্ব ছেড়ে দেওয়ার থেকে নিজে কিছু দায়িত্ব নাও। ইউ টেক 2-3 পার্সনস, 2-3জনকেই শেখাও না, সেটাও হবে। ম্যাম, আমি একটা কথা মনে হচ্ছিল, আপনি বললেন যে ওই হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ মেয়েরা করতে পারে না। অন দ্য আদার হ্যান্ড, এই টেকনোলজি কিন্তু মেয়েদের একটা লিবার্টির জায়গাও দিয়েছে, কারণ লিবার্টির সঙ্গে স্পেসের একটা ভয়ঙ্কর সম্পর্ক আছে। হ্যাঁ, সব স্পেসে কিন্তু ডেমোক্রেসি, লিবার্টি কাজ করে না। যেমন পার্ক ইজ এ নাইস এক্সাম্পল। পার্কে ডেমোক্রেসি যেভাবে কাজ করে, শপিং মলে ডেমোক্রেসি, ফ্রিডম যেভাবে কাজ করে, ফ্যামিলি স্ট্রাকচারে, ক্লাসরুম স্পেসে, ইভেন এই রুমে ডেমোক্রেসি সেভাবে কাজ করবে না। এখন যদি কেউ কথা বলে থামিয়ে দেওয়া হবে। লিবার্টি, ডেমোক্রেসি ইজ ভেরি, একটা খুব সুন্দর পেপার এর ওপর বেরিয়েছে, সেইটা থেকেই বললাম আমি, ইট ইজ নট মাই আইডিয়া। কিন্তু যেটা আমি এক্সপ্লোর করি, এই ভার্চুয়াল স্পেস মেয়েদের একটা ভয়ঙ্কর, যেহেতু স্পেস থেকে সেটা ফিজিক্যাল স্পেস আর নেই, ফিজিক্যাল স্পেসে মেয়েরা ভীষণ রেস্ট্রিক্টেড, কিন্তু ভার্চুয়াল স্পেসে তারা যা খুশি দেখতে পারে, যা খুশি ভাবতে পারে, যে কোনো লোকের সম্বন্ধে দেখতে পারে। অর্থাৎ ধরুন, কিছু মনে করো না তোমরা, কোনো বয়স্ক মহিলারও কোনো বিশেষ পুরুষকে এর কিছু কথা ভাবতে ইচ্ছে করে, সে তখন ফেসবুকে তাকে দেখতেই পারে, তার স্ট্যাটাস দেখতে পারে, দেখে আনন্দ পেতে পারে। দিস ইজ লিবার্টি কাইন্ড অফ, যেটা আদারওয়াইজ পসিবল ছিল না। এটা আমি দেখি, মানে ইট ইজ মাই অবজারভেশন। আমি অনেক সময় এটা ট্রেনে যখন যাই, ট্রেনটা একটা ভালো এক্সপেরিমেন্ট, ল্যাবরেটরি আমার জন্যে, তো আমি দেখি এইগুলো, মানে দে ওয়াচ সামথিং হুইচ ওয়াজ নট পসিবল ইন দ্যাট আদারওয়াইজ রাদার। সো ইট অলসো গিভস সাম, ছেলেদেরও দেয়, শুধু মেয়েদের বলে না, বাচ্চাদেরও দেয়। আমরা অনেক সময় বাচ্চাদের বলি না যে বাচ্চারা মোবাইল থেকে কত কি শিখছে, দ্যাট in the other side of the coin is they are getting liberty. ফোনে কে কী করছে তুমি দেখতে পাচ্ছ না, মানে ইউ আর জাস্ট ইন্টারেক্টিং উইথ দ্য স্ক্রিন অ্যান্ড দ্য স্পেস ইজ ভার্চুয়াল।
কিন্তু এখানে সমজিতের কথায় একটা কথা মনে হচ্ছে, মানে ডোন্ট লুক অ্যাট, মানে only look at the form, you also need to look at the content. If you look at the content, you will see that it perpetuates to be extremely misogynist, extremely patriarchal. So the content of, the overall, the dominant content of the net and everything, and the social media that you are talking about, এবার এই যে একটা সাংঘাতিক হেট স্পিচ চলে, মানে এটা কি সত্যি ডেমোক্রেটিক? মানে there will be several questions, কারণ ফর্মে ডেমোক্রেটিক, ইয়েস, বাট কন্টেন্টটা কিন্তু নয়।
একদমই ঋতু, একদমই তাই। তুমি যেভাবে দেখো, এই আমি বলছিলাম না অ্যাটমস অ্যান্ড বাইটস, এই বাইটস, মেগাপিক্সেলস যেভাবে বিউটিকে রিডিফাইন করছে, এ তো সত্যি, তুমি ঠিকই বলেছো। এবং তুমি যদি ফেসবুক দেখো, তাহলে একদমই তাই, মেয়েদের যেভাবে দেখানো, এটা সর্বত্র। দেখো প্যাট্রিয়ার্কাল নর্ম্যাটিভিটি থেকে তুমি বেরোনোটা তো সহজ জিনিস নয়, বাট টু সাম এক্সটেন্ট অর ইন সাম রেসপেক্ট বলতে পারি একটু লিবার্টি তো হচ্ছে, এটাও তো তুমি অস্বীকার করতে পারবে না। হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু এভরিথিং ইজ being operated in a patriarchal structure. So the challenge is to challenge those structures, and weapon is in our hands. দেখো এই সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াও যদি বলো, it can be a tool of empowerment, tool for empowerment, but patriarchal structure তো আছেই। এখনো আমি গ্রামে দেখেছি, মানে this is my
Especially when you
field work, ঋতু।
মানে তুমি যদি মিমস দেখো তাহলে তুমি দেখতে পাবে যে কি সাংঘাতিক ট্রোলিং,
হ্যাঁ হয়তো ট্রোলিং
এবং মানে সো ভেরি মিসোজিনিস্টিক, ওভারঅল একটা মিসোজিনির বাতাবরণের মধ্যে এটা কাজ করছে, স্পেশালি দ্য মিমস।
এবং কোথাও কোথাও সেটা অ্যাম্পলিফাইড হচ্ছে, যেটা আমি বললাম যে ইট ক্যান বি এ টুল। দেখো সোশ্যাল লাইফ ইজ ফুল অফ কন্ট্রাডিকশনস। সো একদিকে যেমন লিবার্টি হচ্ছে, সেরকম মিসইন্টারপ্রিটেশন হচ্ছে, সব দিকেই হচ্ছে। ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ
ঋতু, টেক কেয়ার।
হ্যাঁ, থ্যাংক ইউ, সি ইউ সুন।
Thank you very much. We all have enjoyed both the presentations by Professor Ritu Sen Chaudhary as well as Professor Sumyanjit Patra. And I'm also thankful to all the participants who raised questions, expressed their, they reflected on these presentations and so on. I think we'll end here, and I always try to stick to time, whether in life or in professional sphere. Still, I'm running sort of 20 minutes. I'm really sorry that we are running sort of time. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
I would request everyone to kindly wait for a group photo. Kindly wait for the group photo, then we would move forward for the lunch break. All the students who are present here kindly come up to the stage.